Good evening. This is the Goffstown Budget Committee meeting. It's 6:01. We're going to start the meeting. The first thing on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Perfect. So let's start the roll call. Sam, would you like to?
Samantha Kearns.
Brian Mazer.
Doug Pounds.
Jared Talbot, School Board Rep.
Kelly Boyer, Select Board Rep.
Joe Alexander.
Frank Hotz.
Laura Stevens.
Olivia Welch-Erdahl.
Richard Fletcher, Water Operation Rep.
Richard Manzo.
Allison DeCesare. Lauren Dukas.
Perfect. And Stacy Belmore's excused, and I'm waiting for Melanie Renfrew-Hebert. Has anyone heard from her? No? Okay, we'll hold off then, we'll see. Okay, so the first item on our agenda are the approval of all the minutes. We put that off from the previous meeting. Is the committee ready to vote on these minutes? These are from the facility tours, so they're not word-for-word minutes. They're just kind of an outline of questions that were asked, who was there, that kind of thing. Are we ready? Okay, so I'll take a motion on the 8:15:23 minutes.
So moved.
Second.
What's your motion?
You said
I'll entertain a motion. What's your motion?
to approve.
Okay. A motion to approve by Jared, second by Sam. Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Abstain.
Abstentions. Brian Mazer abstains, Kelly Boyer abstains, and Richard Manzo abstains. Okay, so that's approved. The rest voted aye. All right, 9/5/23.
Motion to approve the minutes as
Okay.
presented.
Motion by Jared. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Sam. Any discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand. Those opposed? Abstentions? Laura Stevens abstains. Kelly Boyer abstains. Melanie Renfrew-Hebert just walked in right now. So she wasn't here for the vote. Okay, so the next is the September 7th meeting. Is there a motion on those minutes?
So moved.
Motion
Motion to approve.
approved. Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Discussion. Second by Brian. Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Raise your hand. Okay. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, Richard Fletcher, Samantha Kearns, Jared Talbot, and Kelly Boyer abstained. The rest approved it.
One sec, that was Richard Fletcher. Kelly.
Yep.
Jared.
Jared and Sam. Okay, so is there a motion on the Bartlett and Maple Ave minutes of 9/12?
Motion to approve as presented.
Motion by Jared, second by Lauren Dukas. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? So, Richard Manzo, Richard Fletcher, Joe Alexander, and Kelly Boyer. All set?
All
Okay.
set.
Is there a motion on the 9:19 minutes?
Motion to
Martin, you
approve as
apply.
presented.
Okay, motion by Jared. Is there a second? Second by Laura. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Doug Pounds and Richard Fletcher abstain. Okay, 9:26, that's Town Hall and Grassmere Town Hall. Any
Motion
motion?
to approve as presented.
Motion by Jared, is there a second? Second by Brian. Discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand.
Aye.
Those opposed? Abstentions? Okay, Kelly Boyer, Doug Pounds, Richard Fletcher abstain. Okay, the last one. September 28th, Library and Barnard Park. Is there a motion on these minutes?
Motion to accept.
Motion by Allison, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Richard
I wasn't
Fletcher,
there.
you weren't there. Second by Melanie Renfrew-Hebert. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Okay, so Sam Kearns, Doug Pounds, Jared Talbot, and Kelly Boyer.
Hold on one sec. Sam?
Olivia, you were there, right?
No, Richard.
Oh, Richard Fletcher.
Doug Pounds. And Jared. Got it.
Okay, great. So this is the start of our town budget deliberations. So I wanted to kind of do things a little differently than we've done in the past. We have department heads here. We've divided up the presentations by department and by day. So these 4 presentations, town administration, police department, parks and rec, and the library are going to be today. We're also going to deliberate on these budgets while the department heads are here. So we're going to let them present and explain, how they got to their budget, maybe any changes that the select board made, and then we'll go right into deliberating that budget. We don't have to send this to public hearing. I think the plan is to send this all to public hearing on December 5th meeting. So these two next meetings is half the departments tonight, and then the other half, the sewer department, public works, and fire, on the November 30th meeting. And then we're going to wrap up. Hopefully we'll have Richard Fletcher's prepared on the 5th to present the village water precinct, and we'll continue school and town budget deliberations. And then by that time, I'm hoping that we have the collective bargaining agreements to be able to deliberate on as well and discuss. Are there any questions? Lauren?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. So when you say deliberate, you're going to be opening the floor for us to ask further questions, or are you talking about going through it line by line?
So the plan is to have the department head present, us to ask questions, and then we dive right into the line by line, and then we go to the next department. Is that okay?
I mean, that clarifies it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other questions before we get started? Okay, so I'm going to, Kelly, do you have anything to add before we begin? Okay. I'm going to, Melanie, you can sit up here with me if you like, or move over wherever, but we're going to present it there. We're going to get started with Derek Horn, our town administrator, come up and give us a rough presentation and then dive into town administration.
Thank you. Did you want me to do a general overview
That would be
of the
awesome.
entire budget? So as you open your binders, you will see right at the front as well as behind tab 1, there's an overview of the budget that the select board approved to send forward. The default appropriation is $550,000 above the approved 2023 budget, which is an increase of 2.2% on the appropriation side. The majority of this is within our health insurance. As the school presented, we're facing the same health insurance increases through New Hampshire Health Trust. The health insurance rates for us increased 12.8% over 2023, and our dental insurance rates. So of that $550,000 increase on default, $482,000 of that was just along on the insurance benefit lines. Then we have a handful of other lines that have changed throughout on default, and we have one active CBA that is active through the end of 2024. Looking at the select board's proposed budget appropriation, it is $2,170,279 more than the approved 2023 budget, which is an increase of 8.8%. This does not include special articles. The select board's budget proposes the same level of service that the town is currently providing. Some of those increased costs to provide the same level of service are, we have the utilities and fuel increases of $124,000. We have operational costs, which have increased $291,000. That includes household hazardous waste, recycling, bulky waste, and tipping, which is just short of $100,000 at $95,000 increase. We also have significant increases in fleet maintenance, tires, equipment maintenance, facility maintenance, and related supplies across all departments at about $100,000. There is an increase in CIP for capital projects of $641,000. The select board's budget proposes no new positions, only those funded positions from the 2023 approved budget. The select board did include a a proposed wage increase for non-union employees, a 2.5% step increase for those that are eligible, and a 3% matrix adjustment. Both of those would occur on July 1st. Again, we have that, that increase in the insurance rate. And then what you'll also see as we get near the end of budget presentations are special articles. The Select Board is currently in negotiations with 3 collective bargaining groups: our police patrol officers, our police dispatchers and clerks, and our DPW Teamsters Union. That is, those groups, those 3 groups are 59 employees, so that's a big chunk of our employment force, those 3 collective bargaining agreements that we'll be bringing forward. The board for special articles also received requests for deposits into 2 capital reserve funds. They received a request from the fire department for a deposit of $250,000 into the fire apparatus capital reserve fund. And then they also received a request from the library trustees to create a capital reserve fund for the library and to seek an initial deposit of $200,000. This capital reserve fund would be used for capital projects as well as a match for grants or other funds that may be available. And finally, both the Main Street program and Crispin House will be presenting requests for warrant article appropriations on the November 27th Select Board meeting. So they will be presenting to the Select Board on that night. But just kind of a quick overview, and unless anyone had any questions, I can jump right into admin.
Are there any questions for Derek? Jared?
Thank you. For the key factors section, what's considered, I know that you listed this under the Select Board budget. Which of these are also included in the default budget, or they would be considered new spending and therefore be in the new section of it?
So our health rates, that almost $500,000 increase is in both the default and the Select Board budget. Our commodities and fuels are in the Select Board budget only. CIP is in the Select Board budget only. Those increased costs for waste disposal are in the Select Board budget only. And the increased cost for the fleet maintenance, that bottom line, is in the Select Board budget only. Those are not in our default budget.
So the only thing in the default is the health insurance rates.
Yes.
Thank you.
Lauren?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I had noticed that from the previous Select Board meeting, they had asked their department heads to find 1% reduction within their departments to try to lower the rate, or to lower this budget. Is that reflected in their?
No, the Select Board, after that request was put forward by the Select Board department heads, went back to the Select Board and communicated that we would need to either reduce staffing or we would need to change the level of service that the town is providing, and the Select Board chose to put forward the budget, the original budget, without that reduction.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Derek, is there an intention for Main Street and Crispin House to come present to us as well?
I would say if the Select Board choose to put a special article on, we would have them come and present to you. If the Select Board votes to not include an article, then both of those groups would have the ability to submit a petition article. And we advise anyone that seeks a petition article that has an appropriation to come present to the Budget Committee.
That sounds great. If that's approved at the next meeting, can we have them on the agenda for the 5th, please?
Yes.
And then the non-union raise, how many positions does that affect, and how much is the total appropriation?
So the total appropriation is about $165,000. I don't have the exact number, but I will get that for you, of the number of positions.
Okay. Any other questions? We're going to hop into town administration. Okay. Thank you, Derek.
So the town hall portion is behind tab 2 in your binder. I did hand out a revised 2-page sheet, found some errors in it this afternoon. So the default budget appropriation in admin is $71,905 more than the approved 2023 budget, which is an increase of 2.4%. This is primarily due to a new position that we had in 2023 that was only funded for 9 months in the 2023 budget. Now it is a 12-month position. Also, in the default budget, we have included a cost for 4 elections. The select board are mandated by law to provide the election space and the necessary supplies and employees to work that, so we include that in our default budget as well. The difference between select board and the 2023 budget, hardware and software, as well as operating costs, are up approximately 10%. Our contracting is up just under 50%, and that's due to one program. You'll see at the bottom of the first page, there is a new one-time request in IT, and that is to seek out a contract for third-party 24/7 network monitoring. Currently, we have 4 funded positions. 1 is vacant at the moment, but we have 4 funded positions in IT, and those employees are the ones that do the initial response for any network issues, and we think it's appropriate to have a mix of both third-party support as well as in-house IT staff. So the select board voted to keep that in. In our CIP budget, you'll see, again, this, so when you're in your budget binder, this is in the CIP section, so it doesn't fall under town hall. But we have, in elections, we have the cost or the budget for 5 new ballot counting devices approved by the Ballot Law Commission. I know there was a question at the school budget on who'd be paying for those. We think it's appropriate. Ultimately, it's all going to come from the taxpayers, so I did include all 5 in the town CIP budget because we currently have 5 machines, and then we would continue on with the agreement that we've had with the school where they pay for the maintenance cost of one of those ballot counting devices. That's the agreement we've had for many years. And then also for information technology, we have our servers that we need to both refresh the virtualization software and update the license on those. The license on those, the end of mainstream support ends in January of 2024. Microsoft does have extended service, but those were done 7 years ago, and the useful life of a server, or well, all our servers, is about 7 years. So we'll be looking to replace those in 2024. And again, we have no new personnel in this budget. On your second page, I've provided a little bit more information on our information technology, only because that is one of the biggest cost drivers in our budget. But I'd be happy to go through the budget line by line and answer any questions you might have.
Okay, are there questions for Derek? Brian?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Derek, is there a reason why we couldn't push out the ballot counting devices? Or is there an edict from the state saying we have to do it soon?
We may be able to, as we proceed through this budget season, see what the state is saying for timelines. Our thought was we would be purchasing those not for use in 2024, but using them and having them ready for the 2025 town election. We have been told that the 2 companies that get chosen, the support for the existing devices will cease to be there for us. So I guess we could see in what the Ballot Law Commission comes up with for recommendations and what the state's timeline is.
Thank you.
Other questions for Derek? We don't let him off that easy? So the 2.2%, I heard something about how there was a study, or there's a study being done about where our non-union employees are compared to the rest of the state or
Yes.
towns around us. Can you talk a little bit more about if we found the results of those studies, what that looks like?
Yes.
And where our employees compare to others?
Yes, so we did contract with a company called PayPoint HR. They've done similar studies throughout New Hampshire and New England. They're out of Maryland or Delaware. I've always Maryland. Okay. They have provided the select board with a draft report, but the select board is still in the process of reviewing that and providing feedback to the vendor, so I can't give any details on the specifics of that. It is our hope that the select board will get it to a point where they feel comfortable, where they may come and substitute that in for the matrix adjustment as well as the steps, or they may seek some other way to fund that compensation analysis and bring employees up to where they think it's appropriate.
Okay. And my last question is the HR director position. I think when we were touring town hall, that wasn't filled yet.
Correct.
Is that still not filled?
That is still not filled.
Okay.
I currently have 3 full-time vacancies at town hall and 1 part-time vacancy at town hall.
Okay. And how close are you to filling those positions?
We are working on actually shifting some responsibilities around. Our IT position we will be advertising for shortly because we are going to be promoting from within house for one of the employees, hopefully. And then the other 2.5 positions we will be advertising. Again, we're looking to see what strengths people have at town hall and potentially moving some responsibilities around within the same budgetary framework.
Okay, so do you plan on filling that position
Yes.
by the end of the year? What's the timeline on that?
I think we're going to restructure it a little bit, but we would definitely advertise it for it before the end of the year. Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, we're gonna hop right into the deliberations. So these first 14 pages are town administration. So town administration is broken up into various departments. So we're just gonna go department by department. So I'm gonna go. Any questions on the town hall portion of the budget? That's to page 3. I'll just give the committee a minute. Jared.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Merit pay, what is that in English?
So merit pay is a pool of funds that the select board will take recommendations from department heads as we near the end of the year, or sometimes even in the middle of the year, for an employee that may have gone above and beyond their job description, or if they found some type of way to save the town some money, that they can be recognized with a one-time merit bonus.
Follow-up question. Because I see your regular full-time wages is a 3% increase, so this would be targeted for employees that would go above the 3%?
Yes.
Thank you.
Anything else? Page 2, page 3, top of page 3. Okay, we're gonna move on to the town clerk. That's page 3 to page 4. Jared.
Going a little bit fast for me, but that's just might be
My
me.
apologies also.
Going back to page 1, elected officials, I see 27,648 for the select board. Who does that encompass?
So in that elected officials under administration, the select board are paid a monthly stipend. Currently, that stipend is $453.98 a month.
And if I'm seeing this right, they're giving themselves a raise over the default?
There is a 3% increase at the same time that in July 1st, yes.
Thank you.
Lauren.
Thank you. Follow up to that. Is that, are they a completely separate, I mean, I know it's a separate line, but the 3% increase seems to mirror matrix for like your non-union people. Is it considered within that same matrix that the select board bumps up when?
That's what we have historically done.
Is it done annually? I'm sorry, I'm still.
I would say probably over the last 3 or 4 years, we've done it at the same time. Yes, at the same rate increase that non-union employees have done.
Thank you.
Okay. Page 2. I'm going right up to town clerk, so I'm trying to slow down, but these words are easier to look at than the school budget.
Are they, though? We had notes.
Those notes, though.
Created a lot of drama. Lauren?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Facility maintenance year-to-date is 42,000. I'm sure you probably explained it, but it's not striking a bell. Why is that so high year-to-date?
We paid, yes, we paid for the demo of One North Mast, the property that was kitty corner from the library, out of that project, or out of that line. So that is why that line is severely overspent.
Thank you.
We all set with the town hall budget? We're going to town clerk. Jared?
Does town clerk still have an open position?
It does not.
It was filled?
No, it was filled about a month and a half ago. We have had to close for lunches and stuff like that when we only have one coverage because it takes probably 60 to 90 days for somebody to even be able to work in the system, and then a full year to get the full training under their belt. So she's been with us for about a month and a half now.
Great, thank you.
Laura?
Thank you. Who falls under elected officials for town clerk?
That is the
it
town
just
clerk.
the town clerk?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Melanie?
Employee development, it's a small line, Derek, but I noticed that the year-to-date is higher than what was budgeted. Is this a change that might be likely to continue to happen? And if so, the select board has it at 700. Is that something that should be increased? We've seen a lot of increases. Sorry, that was 3 questions all at once. We've seen a lot of increases in other development and fees, so I wonder if this one's also increased and will continue to?
A lot of this is, again, bringing a new employee on board and getting them up to speed with some of the training that we need to do. So we do not anticipate that we would need a significant increase in this line in '24.
Thank you.
Brian?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going back to page 2. Just out of curiosity, what's the transportation program? What does that constitute?
So many years ago, the select board put on separate warrant articles to enter into agreements with Manchester Transit Authority to have a bus, you might have seen it's a maroon bus that comes to town. And then probably 3 years ago, we moved it into the operating budget. That bus is available to anyone in town 5 days a week, and it has 80% federal funding. So that 13,000 there represents the 20% funding from the town to have that available. And it's a very popular program, especially with some of our senior residents to get to medical appointments and that kind of thing.
Is it utilization, follow-up, sorry. Is utilization increasing, or is it kind of plateau? Or?
It's increased probably since COVID. It definitely slowed down during there, but it is pretty flat. I can provide the budget committee with statistics on what we're seeing for number of trips and hours. We get those on a quarterly basis.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay, anything else on the town clerk? Okay, we're going to move to elections. Frank.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Page 4, first line, 2023 budgeted amount for office supplies 3,000, year-to-date 5646. Just a big difference in office supply.
Yeah, when I looked at it today, they had ordered dog tags for both this year and next year in that line. So I think that's about a $1,700 cost, and there were a couple other incidentals in there. I think the biggest one, again, were the dog, purchasing the dog license this year. So
Prepayment, in essence.
yeah, and I know they work with a vendor, so I don't know if Kathy was able to get a deal. Sometimes if she's able to get a deal, she'll do stuff like that.
Thank you.
So, on the elected, on the regular wages for election line, shouldn't that go up? because there's 4 elections next year?
Yeah, so if you look in the leftmost column, that's the 2022 budget when we did have 3 elections.
3, yeah, okay.
So it is a little bit more than there. We've budgeted $26,000 for elections, and then we also have assistant moderators out of that line as well. So that is for all 4 elections that we'll have in 2024.
The 29,000 is enough?
Yep.
Okay. Anything, oh, Jared.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Continuing off that, I thought the moderator was an elected official and fall under that line.
So I may have misspoke. The moderator does fall under the elected officials line. That is our assistant moderators. We have assistant moderators at both polls that assist, and they receive a $150 stipend on the day of elections.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else? Elections? We'll move on to finance. That's page 5 to page 6. So maybe this is a question for Kelly. I'm seeing a lot of 1s change to 0s in budget lines. I'm looking at, so the default had $1 in it, and then it switches to 0. Did the board make motions to cut them to 0, or how has that changed?
So if you look in, there's the one column is 2024 department head line, and then you've got default and then select board. So with,
Department
I
head
assume you're
decided.
looking to the elected officials.
I'm looking, I mean, advertising on page 6, elected, yeah.
Yeah, we have, you know, sometimes we'll have that there's always been $1 in that elected officials in finance for going back to when there was an appointed treasurer, you know, 20 years ago. So we kind of said it's
Okay.
time to get rid of it, so.
Anything else in finance? Go ahead, Sam.
On page 6, that furniture and fixtures, I noticed that, like, we're pretty much budgeting like a flat 2,000, but we have a purchase order for $10,000.
Yes. So knowing that we had some savings in some other lines, we had a need for fireproof filing cabinets for our HR files. Unfortunately, they had never been put in fireproof cabinets, so I authorized the finance department to purchase those, and those were delivered probably about 3 weeks ago.
Allison.
Thank you. The 7688 under banking services,
Yes.
and then we're kind of looking to decrease that. Why? Do you know why it was so high so far?
Yeah, so,
year to date?
yeah, we're still trying to figure out what the actuals are going to be on. We've really only got 6 months of actuals. We've gone to a new fee structure. About 6 months ago, we added a service that's called Positive Pay. Every time we do our AP run or our payroll run and there are physical checks created, we have to upload a file to Citizens Bank. So anytime somebody comes in to cash that check, it automatically pulls it up in the system and it checks it against that file. So that was an increased service that cost us. So we may exceed that in 2024, but again, the way the fee structure, it also takes into account what we have in our account and in some of our investment accounts. So again, we might go over that a little bit in 2024, but because we went to a new service, we upped it a little bit.
Okay. Anything else in finance? Where am I going? Tax collection.
Danielle had a question. You had a question about how many non-union employees. There are 75 positions that are included in that 165,000 personnel increase.
Okay.
And that 165 is, not all wages. That includes the New Hampshire retirement and any of the other required deductions as well.
Thank you, Danielle. Great. Anything else in tax collection? All right, we're going to go to IT. Jared?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Looking at comp and communication hardware, you have a default of 142,000. The select board for new spending has 152,500. What's the increase for?
We always have, we are, not always have, but we are seeing more PC and laptops, especially our rugged MDTs. So we have a regular replacement schedule. So part of it is, again, we've recently put tablets into our ambulances and some of the other apparatus. And then the other thing is just simply cost. The cost for laptops, PCs, all our hardware has gone up considerably.
Follow on. How many additional pieces of hardware are you getting for roughly $152,000?
How many additional?
Well, yeah, because you said replacements or anything, so how much are you actually buying?
So we have, I'll refer you back to the cover sheet that I provided, but we have a 4-year replacement. We have 100 PCs, 60 laptops, and 12 rugged MDTs that are in the police cruisers. So you're purchasing 25 PCs, 15 laptops, and 3 MDTs. We do a 3-year replacement schedule for tablets and phones. There's about 55 total of those. We have a 5-year replacement on monitors. We have 170 monitors, and we also do a 5-year replacement on battery backup storage. We have 15 of those, and then we have a 6-year replacement schedule for 40 printers and scanners. So we follow that, and so again, it's in the cover sheet in the admin, but I can provide you the exact number of how many we're doing next year.
One more follow-up?
Good.
So if I'm understanding this correctly, we're getting the same number of units, but the cost increases for those units that we're getting for next year increased by $10,500?
Yes.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. 2 lines up on contracted services. Looks like new spend. Can you comment further on that, what that is?
Yes, that's the third-party 24/7 monitoring for our network. It's really kind of that first, as soon as an incident happens, we can have somebody lock it down and then get our IT staff in.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we're moving on to property reval. Page 8 to page 9. Any questions on this section? Okay. Lauren?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Legal services. It seems like, I mean, you started off at 10,000 and 22, didn't even come close, and then you set it back down to 5,000. Do you feel like that's still pretty high, or is that a you have to have that amount to retain?
It's a hard one to plan for with the revaluation. Will we have to potentially involve legal? Normally, the only time we do legal is if he has a question. I know this year there were some nonprofits, the way that we treat some of the nonprofit properties that he had to inquire about, and usually we tap the legal services line when it's a big commercial entity that's going up to the state for abatement or an appeal. Could it possibly go down? Yes, potentially, but ultimately the board might have to move around some money in that one. So it's kind of a hard one to predict.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, we're going to move on to planning, zoning, economic development. So that's bottom of page 9, page 10. Go ahead, Sam.
Just on the regular full-time wages for the planning, zoning, and econ development, I noticed that number went down from 2023, but everyone is getting a big increase.
So that is, so there were 3 positions in that line. What we've done is we're going to a model that has 2 building inspectors. So it used to be 1 building inspector in building and health and 1 zoning officer. We think to provide better coverage for building inspections or anybody that comes in is to really do 2 building inspectors with 1 focused on zoning. So that's you're only seeing 50% of the second inspector there. When we get to building and health, you'll see an increase there. We basically shifted just 50% of where those wages show up.
Okay.
Set.
I'll table mine for now.
All set, Jared. Brian?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm curious about economic development. What does that constitute?
So we have an appointed Economic Development Council. Periodically, they will run different programs. I know they're working with University of New Hampshire, the county cooperative on some programs now, which is some of the costs that you see in 22 and 23. So that is funds that are available to EDC to use for different programs.
Okay, thank you.
Can you talk a little bit about the building inspectors? Are they spread too thin? I think I heard something where we're sending them to other towns. Is that true, or are we?
So the town of Goffstown does have memorandum of understandings with both New Boston and Ware to provide support and services back and forth. Earlier this year, Ware was having a hard time hiring a part-time inspector, so our inspector was spending quite a bit of time out there. I think he's in a good place now. We're not covering for them as much, and we're looking to bring that second inspector on. Probably likely, he'll have to do some training to bring somebody up to speed. There just simply aren't a lot of building inspectors out there anymore. But we think having 2 of them will provide good coverage for the town.
Okay. Sam?
Thank you. On page 10, consulting services, I just noticed that we have a purchase order for $35,000, but the budget is $12,000, and then we're going to bring it back down to $2,000.
Yes, we budgeted funds this year. It's been many years since the planning board has looked at their impact fees. Impact fees are collected when new development, new dwelling units are built within the town. It's been many years since that was done. We went out to RFP. The planning board and the select board chose a vendor, so it was a little bit more than we budgeted for, but it is kind of a one-time project. Okay. So that's what that $35,000 is.
Anything else? Under planning, zoning, and economic development? Other general government total? Building and Health?
Vice Chair.
Brian?
Thank you, Vice Chair. Actually, on top of page 11, the dues, can you elaborate on what does the town get for those dues?
So Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission, they serve as our regional planning organization. The biggest thing they do is they advocate for town projects during the state's 10-year transportation plan, so they go over that. They have a brownfields grant program that we work with identified brownfield properties for potential grant funding for cleanups. They provide the town traffic counts, and then they also provide other planning support. We've worked with them on different studies in the past, so that's typically what they do.
Thank you.
Olivia?
The wellness committee expenses line, can you explain what that is and why it's gone up so much?
Yes, so we have a wellness committee that's staffed by employees. The reason for the increase over the last 2 years, the select board has hosted an annual employee appreciation barbecue in August for the town employees as well as their families, so that's what that increase is.
Okay. Thank you.
Lauren?
Thank you. Conservation Commission expense, is this the milfoil?
A portion of it is the milfoil. In 2022, so we've got $11,000 budgeted in milfoil. This year we spent about $6,000. We heard from Nemaski Lake Association today. They could be getting in bids for treatment next year upwards of $40,000. So the state pays for half, the town tries to pay a portion, and then the membership of those lake associations put in some as well. So we've been low over the last few years, but we do anticipate the requests from at least Nemaski may go up in 2024.
So if I can clarify? Thanks. So, I'm sorry, you have 11,000 budgeted out of the 13.5,
Yes.
so it's the vast
Yes.
majority. Cool.
Yep.
Thank you.
Melanie?
Thank you, Chair. Civic ceremonies, just for reference, do you know how many of those we do? Seems like an awful small cost.
We typically use civic ceremonies when annually we have to replace the flags on the common and in front of town hall. When the American Legion was doing Memorial Day parade, and actually even after they stopped doing it, we provide wreaths. We also purchase the flags that go out that the volunteer organizations put on that, and then we can use it for a handful of other items. It's usually a line for the select board to pull from.
Thank you, Derek.
Yep.
Brian?
I have a follow-up on the dues. Are there any, like, known or unknown, I guess, hardships if that line item disappeared? If that funding that went away for the dues?
So if the Southern New Hampshire planning dues,
Yeah.
I guess the select board would be forced to decide if they were going to pay, and we would have to see what would occur. It's never been asked before. So.
Okay.
Lauren?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want some clarification on something that you just said, Derek, about a line for the select board to pull from. I mean, it's a small amount of money, and I know it's the select board's budget, but we have frequently heard about how funds are kept, how funds are moved. And when you say it's a line that the select board will pull from, you mean if there's an overage within planning, zoning, and economic development, that they oftentimes will say, oh, that line might be a little high, and we can kind of count on a little bit of money from there to balance out the rest of that? Or is that more, you referring to more of the bottom line budget of, there might be places that the select board knows will be overages that they can get into to balance their bottom line?
So typically, I keep an eye on the admin portion of the budget and make sure I know, like, whether it was the impact fee studies. I knew as soon as that was a selected vendor that we were going to overspend, and we identified other lines where we were going to where we're going to have a reduction. So it was kind of that bottom line idea. My idea for saying civic ceremonies, those are some of the things that the select board will use. I know they've used that a handful of times when we're doing proclamations for people, any events that they might have to pull out money for. But yeah, ultimately, the budget is the select board's they could transfer between lines.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else in other general government? We're gonna move on, building health inspection. That's through lines. Looks like it's through line, page 12. Page 13 and 14 wraps up town hall budget. I'm going to give the committee some time, and then we're going to move on. Lauren.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Direct assistance, is that like fuel assistance above and beyond that they can apply through the state for?
Correct. That would be if somebody meets our qualifications, we would pay out of that line, whether it's for fuel or rental assistance. While it's been low for 21 through 23, I think a lot of that is due to a lot of the programs that the state has had. From 2017 to 2020, we spent an average of $9,928 a year. So we are seeing some of those rental assistance programs start to lapse, and we are starting to see some more applicants come in.
Thank you.
Richard.
Derek, back on page 8, there's a line there, 4507, contracted services. Nothing spent in 23, so I guess it's a new line, it's $150,000.
Yes, that's the network monitoring for our computers and our computer network. It's a new program that we would be looking to implement.
Laura, did you have something?
I did. So with the direct assistance, can you say the numbers again? And like you said that some of those programs has lapsed. Does that mean that the state is no longer covering, and so we're picking up? What I guess I'm just unfamiliar.
So I think
with
there were a lot of programs, especially with COVID. The biggest one that we saw was the inability for landlords to evict tenants, and when that lapsed, we definitely saw a lot more people come in and apply. There was also quite a few different fuel and electrical programs out there. So we anticipate that it will go up a little bit. Yes.
The state also just recently, last year, passed legislation that would help with fuel assistance for families under a certain income level. So that's also kind of helped. I think that would fall under that line too. That would help a little bit.
Yeah, that's definitely helped, and we give those referrals all the time to other programs that people can take advantage of.
Okay. Are there any other questions on the, Doug?
Yeah, page 13, regular full-time wages, I'm looking at 8,118, that's, can you explain that? I'm just trying to understand that.
Yes.
It seems weird to me to see that.
Yeah, so we don't actually have a welfare officer that's a standalone, that's all they do. Our executive secretary has 2 hours a week budgeted for intake, meeting with people, helping them get their application, and then our welfare officer is another person that receives a $50 a week stipend for actually reviewing the applications.
Okay, so these are existing employees that are doing double duty, so to speak?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. General question, going back to what you mentioned a little bit later, or earlier ago. Do we have a collective bargaining agreement for anybody at Town Hall?
No.
No, we don't. Okay. I'm good then, thank you.
Okay, are we good to wrap up Town Hall budget?
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you, Derek. Thank you. I think these will go a little faster, smaller budgets. We're going to move on to the police budget. Chief?
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, everyone. Set this up.
I know, I already have a question. I'm the worst. Just wanted to say thanks for the rulers, Town Hall.
These are, yeah.
I do appreciate that. While you were
I
having.
did see a lot of people.
While you're having it.
Right-handed.
That's all. Seems a nice one. It's a nice comment.
That was Danielle.
Thank you, Danielle.
Yeah, thank you, Danielle. This is useful.
Okay. All right, Chief, so we're going to have same process, have you present, and then we're just going to go line by line on your budget.
All right, thank you. Well, for those of you who don't know me, Chief Eric Serino, Goffstown Police Chief. Thank you all for having me. Real quick, the breakdown of our budget usually falls into two separate. One is police operations, which has most of our patrol officers and our support staff, and then we also have another budget that's called communications for our dispatchers. So you'll see that as I go through. We have operations and dispatch. So, Mr. Chair, do you want me to read out the actual numbers that I have for our, or do you want me just to go over a general?
Give your presentation.
Okay, perfect.
And then
So
if we
for
have
our
questions,
budget this year, we are coming in at a 0.31% increase. Basically, what you're going to see here is we kept it as lean as we could. We have a few things in here you'll see that we're trying to gain next year, but nothing too crazy. Our operations budget, so basically you see that we, our operations budget is about $4,277,028, and communications went up to about $1,010,549. CIP is increased 6% from last year, and that's mainly just the cost of the new cars, the driver of that. We're trying to get 3 new cruisers like we do every other year for a total of $191,334. Really quickly, kind of an overview, 8 lines have increased, 5 lines have decreased. And what I'd like to also note is that the increases, what you're seeing here, is anything over $2,500. Because we have a lot of lines, so we try to, the lines I'm talking about, the increase are over $2,500. So in operations, what your increases were for wages was roughly about $28,470. That increase does not include the CBAs of our patrol union, but it does include the 3% cost or the matrix adjustment that the town had put in. The wages include full-time, part-time, retirement, Medicare, longevity, and FICA. Another line you'll see increased was the travel expense. It increased to a little bit, it increased this year, or for next year, $9,340. We're really looking to capitalize on a really great training down in Florida that will send, hopefully, 3 officers down to a really good conference that has a lot of trainings put on by a huge police training organization. We thought that it would be advantageous for us for not only recruitment, for retention, to send some officers down there and really focus on honing in some new skill sets and bringing it back to us in Goffstown. So that's where you're seeing your travel expense there. Next one is electricity. We're just based on the rates. We're trying to average where we're at each month and yearly totals. So we're estimating we're going to be going up about $5,000. Gasoline is the same thing. Based on the new rates, we're going to estimate we're going to go up about $5,000. Bring it to the next page. 2024 operation decreases. You're going to see part-time wages decreased about $10,398. We decrease overtime slightly by $25,500. Police retirement went down, $45,733. Employee development slightly went down, about $4,325. And our equipment line went down $6,597. I'll take you into the communications increases. You'll see the first bullet here is our equipment maintenance line. It's increasing $31,180, and that's solely because we have a 5-year contract with our vendor that provides our maintenance and services to the new almost $1.9 million radio system that's been completed. So this is something that when we put this package together and we went through our RFP, part of our, I think I explained this last year to you guys, but part of our agreement was to make sure we had a 5-year service agreement. That 5-year service agreement is about $40,000 a year, so this is where you're going to see this increase. The increase for employee development is about $1,900. We are sending our accreditation manager to the accreditation conference next year to bring back some new accreditation experiences or up-to-date trends and topics. We're also seeing a little bit of an increase in uniforms for the dispatch center by $1,000, and wages is going up $14,894. Again, this wage increase does not include the union, the CBA, but it does include the 3% from non-union. Next slide is our CIP. Again, we've been pretty successful with our 3 cruisers each year. What I've done here is I've broken down the cost of it. As I said to CIP earlier this year and to the selectmen, we've been running into severe problems with our Fords, even though we're buying them pretty new. I know I keep saying this, I'm sorry, I sound like a broken record, but I feel like the COVID cars, the cars that are coming off the line after COVID, constantly have problems. In fact, last week we just sent a 2022 with 14,000 miles because the powertrain failed back to auto fair. So we are looking at different options for next year. So we're looking to see if we can include 2 Chevy Tahoes instead of and 1 Ford Interceptor is what we use now. And we're trying to do that based on some of our neighbors around us. They're using Dodge Dakotas, Dodge Challengers, Ford Chevy Tahoes, and the Fords here. So we're looking to see if what vehicles are going to work for our agency and maybe not be offline as long. And I broke that down to show everybody here that buying a Chevy at state bid is $43,758, and our Fords that we buy are $42,865. So really the cost factor here is really not that much more. So we're looking to try something different for next year. And I'll bring you to the next slide. Really the cost drivers here in our agency is personnel. So 88% of our budget is personnel, 8% is operating costs, and 3.5% of our budget is CIP. Next slide is really just a capture for everybody to know that what do we look like as an agency. We're 32 sworn police officers. We're 1 part-time sworn police officer. We have 10 dispatchers, 4 support staff that really keep us going, 5 crossing guards, and our vehicles are 10 line cruisers that we change out every 3 years typically, 5 unmarked cruisers that we change out every 3 years as well, and then 1 pickup truck, 1 command post, and 1 radar trailer. And usually put in some accomplishments. This year we had a really great cop card challenge that we put out to the schools, and we had an ice cream social that was put on by the GPA. So this is a picture of us with one of our winning classes. We all went and had ice cream with them. We also did a junior baseball challenger league game that the police and fire went to. And of course, we lost about 600 to 1, I think is what the total score was there. That was a really great event. And then last page, obviously, we're hiring. If anybody wants to join the team, police officer positions, dispatchers, and 1 crossing guard.
Thank you, Chief. Questions for Chief Serino, Melanie?
Not a question, Chief, but just a huge thank you. My son is on the Challenger League, and while we know that they completely wiped you and fire out, we so much appreciated and just the joy that they had from playing and the equipment you guys brought. We can't overstate at all how much that meant to them.
Well, thank you. That's what it's all about.
As the parent.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Laura.
Thank you. What would be your sort of reasonable ideal level of staffing compared to what you currently have? I know you love that question.
Yeah. Well, Laura, as I said last year, I need to be more than what I'm at now. The town was really past that officer through that 32nd officer that we had, and we did a great job for that year. Fortunately, this year we've suffered some losses, so 32 is where we need to be to kind of keep going forward. Like I said to I think Frank last year, I told you I think it was like 36, 38 is where we really should be in 2023. That's where we're at.
Can I follow up? I hope for you guys that the ability to travel and attend some conferences helps with, you know, the guys' motivation and stuff, and retaining them. Can you explain a little more what the accreditation conference, what that is?
So it's basically Michelle Provencher is our communications supervisor and our accreditation manager, and typically they have 4 conferences a year. And those conferences there's trainings throughout the week, and they also award your big award that you get when you go through your 4-year cycle. She's found that typically we only send the agency to the conference for all the extra trainings that one time every 4 years to get the award. So we go down to wherever it is, and a couple years ago we went to Chicago. We went through the trainings during the week, and at the end of the week they presented us our award. So we felt that it's some training that during that week that she can go to kind of figure out what's trending, what's moving forward, what the future of accreditation is, and bring that back to us. So this is kind of the first year that we're going to kind of go out of every 4 years and send her for some advanced training.
Okay, great. Thank you.
While we're on the accreditation, we recently went through one. Is that right? Are we done with that?
So,
like last year, right?
Yeah. So
I remember getting called.
Yeah. So they do. So it's changed a little bit, and they keep changing it. So now they're doing it every single year. They go into our files online remotely, and they look through all of our files, and they have basically an assessor that looks at it to make sure each year we're good. Now they're doing that, and then in the 4th year, once they finish that, we have our public hearing, we have our calls, our survey, then we go down to wherever that conference is, and we get the award presented to us. So it used to be at the end of 3 years, they would show up, they would do everything all in that one time on site, and then they would send us. Now it's every single year. So her workload actually, it's a little bit more now, because every year she has to have these files in place so they can assess them. So we just went through our one in August. It was done, and just got the report back the other day. It looks pretty good. So.
Lauren.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can we go to the CIP, the cruiser replacement schedule? I'm a little confused. So you have 3 cruisers on your CIP, which is your standard rotation for $191,000 and change. But then when you go to cost breakdown, it says the Chevy is $64,000, but then it says vehicle is $43,000.
Yeah.
Is that right? Because if I'm taking 3 cruisers and putting it into 191, they're like $63,000.
Well, is it to outfit it?
So,
Kitted out? I'm
so
just
yes.
cute.
So you'll see. I'm sorry. That I should have broken that out. So where it says cost breakdown, Chevy is $64,886 total. The vehicle cost is $43,000.
That's what
the cost of outfitting it with all the lights, the cages, all the decals, that's the extra cost.
I get it.
Same thing with the Ford. So the total cost of the car, once we get it, will be $64,886.
So that's what you were comparing, is Chevy's 64, almost 65, and Ford is 61 and a
Yep.
half. That was the bottom line.
Total cost, correct.
Gotcha, I'm sorry. Was
That's
misreading that, thanks,
That's all
Chief.
right.
Brian?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So Chief, on the same lines about the vehicles and the frequency or cycle every 3 years, is that an industry standard? I mean, why is it 3 years? Why couldn't we stretch it 4 years? And if you
So-
can stretch it,
Yeah.
what are the potential issues or hardships, I guess?
So, it's been our standard. It's not an industry standard. It's
Okay.
something that Goffstown PD has developed. My predecessors and I have seen that it kind of works for us. The years, if my memory serves me correctly, the years that the vehicles were cut, it puts us back a couple of years. We stretch other vehicles out. I think what we end up seeing is the more the vehicles get older, obviously they're driving them more, maintenance goes up, downtime is increased. What we're seeing and what worries me is even the newer cars now that we're getting, we're seeing are still down more than some of our older cars. So kind of trying to keep the newer ones in cycle. Again, we take the 3 years on the line, the ones that you see in patrol, and then typically what we do is after those 3 years, depending on if they have more problems or not, we typically put them in unmarked status. So our admin staff and our detectives use those unmarked cars, and then after that, a total of 6 years. Sometimes we stretch them to 7, and then we get them over to DPW and see what they can do with them over there. But really, I've seen agencies lease the car, and then once they're done, they get rid of them. I guess that would be something, if we wanted to explore that, we'd have to talk to the board, but my predecessors have told me in the past, years ago, that that was something that they didn't want to do because we keep the cars, and again, they go 3 years for a line, typically 3 years for offline. Sorry, I'm looking over here. And then if DPW can run them for a year, 2 years, 3, that's, you could potentially get 8, 9, 10 years out of one car that we own, whereas at least you're kind of getting rid of it. So it just depends. That's typically what we've done.
Okay.
Again, if we lose a car, we just got to see the next year where we're at when it comes to if it's kind of falling apart or the maintenance cost increase. So.
Okay, thank you. And just as a follow-up, when it goes to DPW, is that just a transfer? They're not buying it, you're not selling it to them, right?
So we just transfer title over to them,
Yep.
and then they do what they need. If it's just kind of like a car that goes around the yard, or they go, drive around town, and then if it's really bad, I believe they put it out to bid for someone to auction it off and buy it.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. How many, I'm just curious, how many miles a year do you put on a typical police vehicle that's within the first 3-year cycle?
Yeah, so it really depends. The first 3 years, we actually been learning lately that our warranties are up after 36,000 miles, and we're passing that in the first year. So typically, I don't know the exact, but on average, it's probably about 45,000 per year. And again, what we're trying to do is you try to run one car, a day shift and a night shift with 2 officers, and then the next shift that comes in, like on a Wednesday, this car stays back at the lot. We use a different car that runs days and nights, 24 hours, so we give the cars a break, each different shift itself, A team versus B team. So that's kind of where we're at, but it just depends. Like this past year, we saw 3 or 4 cars go down for quite some time. So of course those cars' mileages are sitting over at Auto Fair Unique, so the other cars' mileages are going through the roof because we're driving those more often.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Chief, can you talk a little bit about the conference? I'm just confused. What's the programming about down there? Is it something where officers are going to get certified and then bring it back to the rest of the department? That's my first question. And I think the other two were answered, cruisers and accreditation, so just the conference.
So the conference really it's not a certification. It's really just training. So they're hosting in Florida because it comes from national, so people come from all over the nation down there. But it comes down to, it's put on by an organization called Street Cops, and basically they go over anything from constitutional law updates, basically violent offender takedowns. It's really just focused on what it's like to be a street cop, and it's, I don't want to say it's geared to, it encapsulates bigger city tactics, but also some smaller city stuff. We've seen a few of pockets of trainings that agencies have hosted up here, and from them, and it seems to be really, really advantageous for us. Our officers that have really liked it. So this conference is like once a year, and we thought it'd be a really good thing to send them down to kind of get a different training.
Okay, and these are going to be newer officers in the department, or are they going to be the more experienced ones?
Well, I guess we'll have to find out.
Are you I'm just curious, like, who's getting the training?
Who qualifies?
My hope is that we can send a couple of a diverse group of people there, but at the rate we're going, I'm trying to figure out how that's going to look.
Okay, great.
Can I do a quick follow-up?
Yeah.
And you said that was for like 3 officers to go down?
We've budgeted for 3, yes.
Okay, so we're going to dive right into deliberations. These are pages 15 through 20, I believe, out of 49. So we're going to start 15 and go from there. Jared.
Chief, I'll do my best to try to give you the numbers and ask my question. Looking at your regular wages, it looks like you're currently underspending by $200,000. Why is that occurring?
For 2023?
For this year.
Because we've lost a lot of people.
And you're trying to, hopefully the collective bargaining agreement will make it so that that won't happen in future years?
I hope so.
Okay. Follow-up question. In this line, how many people are not part of the collective bargaining agreement? Because I see that you're increasing it over the default by $25,000. So I'm trying to understand what that $25,400 is going to for raises.
So, for police operations, that includes all employees except for dispatch. So we currently have 22 union positions.
Mm-hmm.
So basically the increase is for 10.
Well, the union positions would be part of the default. $25,000 is the difference between your default and your proposed budget. So that $25,000 shouldn't be going to union members.
Go ahead, Danielle. Go ahead. You guys got the numbers.
So the chief has 22 patrol officers, as well as 3 clerks that are in a separate union. Both of those are being negotiated. And then there are 11 positions that are non-union.
There you go.
Okay, so the $25,000 is going to 11 positions?
Yes.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
They're too quick for me, Jared. But thank you.
I was set up, so I did my homework before we came today. I just see that we're dropping overtime pay. We're good with that?
Yeah, that's a, okay, so that's a, for us, it's an interesting one because, you know, historically, we haven't really come close to it over the course of 7, 8, 9 years. I increased it last year knowing that we had full staff and that we were going to have more trainings, more call-outs, more vacation, stuff of that nature. Kind of rolling into 2024 thinking that we're still down a few, which means we won't pay as much for trainings every month. Our averages are, when we do our averages for when we calculate the cost of that, those averages slightly change because we've lost a lot of tenured people who made a little bit more in the overtime, so we're kind of decreased that slightly. So again, it's not dollar for dollar because I have an average of dollar for dollar, and this is a little bit lower.
Yeah.
So it's kind of it's a moving target.
Samantha, do you have a question?
My question is on page 16, so I wasn't sure if we'd moved there yet.
Okay. Anything else on page 15? Frank?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The longevity pay line, 2023 budget versus year-to-date, is that drop-off specifically because of the losses that you've taken this year in personnel?
Yeah. Yeah.
It has at the end of the year.
Yeah,
That's my
we
thought.
pay at the end of the year, but also you're going to see, because we did lose several people that have some time, that longevity does go down slightly.
Okay.
But yeah, they haven't sent those checks yet.
Brian?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Clothing and uniforms, is that strictly just clothing and uniforms, not laundering? It's just purchasing of,
So it's clothing, uniform, and some of our equipment.
okay,
There is no laundering. So, yeah, essentially that's what it is. So,
Okay.
gun belts, holsters, things of that nature, hats, things of that nature, yep.
is that for the entire force, or is just like, it's
So
on a s-
operations, it's all of our police officers. We buy our support staff jackets and polo shirts for when they go out in the community, or if they want to wear them at work. And dispatch has their own uniform.
Okay.
line. Yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And you'll see that that line is down because we're actually about to buy 3 new officers their uniforms this year, which are pretty expensive, so.
Right.
Okay. Page 16, Samantha, go ahead.
I noticed the travel expenses. I realize that's the conference. In your presentation, you have it at 9,340, but the line is 9,640. Is there just another $300 conference?
Yeah, I think what it was is we had 300 already budgeted. We just,
Okay.
my presentation was the increase.
Okay.
Was the increase, yep.
What's the other $300 conference?
What I'm saying is we have 300 budget currently, so when I basically just added that 9.
Oh, okay, so the total cost of the conference, okay.
Right. So so what you're seeing total for everything that we have will be 9, we usually keep $300 in there for some travel expenses.
Okay.
This year, you're gonna see that it's increased because we send people to different trainings within the state, and we did not have police cars for them to travel in, so we have to reimburse them mileage.
I was just more asking to make sure it wasn't like a typo or something.
No, no.
Sorry.
Laura?
Thank you. Legal services, the numbers just seem kind of all over the place.
Yeah.
Want to talk about that?
Yeah, so are you referring to 2022 and then 2023?
So, kind of all of it.
Yeah.
I just don't see any sort of pattern.
Well, because there isn't one.
Okay.
It just depends on how many people want to send us stuff that we have to contact our attorneys and have them look it over for us and send it back to them.
So, $1,000, sorry to follow with that. The 1,000 is kind of like a standard, that's.
So
best you
so it was 500.
Yeah.
And then, and we didn't really use it a lot the years past, and then in 2022, you can see we used our legal services a lot in 2022, so I increased in 23, thinking that maybe 1,000 would be a good spot, and then this year, we're still going, so.
Do you feel like you need more in that?
I can't answer that.
Okay.
Because it just depends on what's going on
There's
and
no way to-
who's sending us letters to look at it.
Okay. Thank you.
Lauren?
Thank you. Follow-up to that, if I may. What kind of stuff are the police receiving that you have to contact lawyers about? Are we talking about right to know?
Sometimes it is, if they're asking us things and right to know that we typically don't understand if we should be sending this out or not, we'll
Right.
contact legal. We've had people who have brought us to court because they felt that our building's not in the right position, or, I don't know how much I want to get into it publicly, but we've had situations where people have sent us letters to basically figure things out, and we've had to have legal help us with that.
Can I follow on that?
I
Do you
don't
feel,
know
I
how
was like,
much
is it
that you-
recurring, like, is there something else that needs to be done, or you feel it's just, it's a weird line?
2022, I
All right.
would say, I would say in 2022, the majority of the cost of that was from probably 1 or 2 individuals that really.
An aberration.
Really focused on
Okay,
us.
just if it's an aberration, I can take that, but is it a pattern of, okay, aberration, got it.
So, and that's why I said to Laura, it's a hard kind of thing to put down. I don't know when they're gonna send us stuff and when they're not, so.
Thanks, Chief.
You're welcome.
I think you answered that. Sam?
What is NESPIN? What's that stand for?
Oh, Nespin?
Yeah, NESPIN.
That's, it's a North American State Police Internet. So basically, not North American.
New England?
New England, thank you, yeah. So it's just a portal similar to our IACP net. It's a portal that we can get into, and we can look at different, it's a database essentially that we have access to.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Before that, and it's a 3-part question, Can you comment further what contracted services are?
Yep. It is basically our janitor, our custodials, personnel that come in, that clean all of our bathrooms, clean all of our floors, sweep, take out all our trash, basically dust everything, try to keep our agency that we have looking somewhat manageable.
Okay. Second part, diversion services.
That is a organization that we contract through with Crispin's House, that we pay them through the courts. So what happens is when we have juveniles that commit crimes, there's a certain threshold that if they meet, instead of going and sitting in front of a judge and going through the court system, we can take these juveniles and put them into a diversion program. That program will work with the parents and the juvenile and give them certain markers to get to. And it's a little bit different than community service, but similar to that. Typically, we see them doing research papers on things they've done and what the effects are long-term, and it's pretty successful. But yeah, so that's the expense that we pay to have that services for our youth in our community.
Okay, and the last part of that question, the generator expenses. What does that constitute?
We have a pretty massive generator at the police department that anytime we do we do 2 cycles that we tested each year, plus whatever maintenance on that one.
So is that maintenance contract, or what is that expense?
That, there is 2 testing maintenance, I don't know if it's a contract, but we test it twice, that we have to do each, the beginning of the year and the end of the year, load test, and then we have maintenance that we do it on. I can't answer if it's an actual contract that we sign every 5 years, or if it's once a year, we just have them come in and do it.
So a third party's coming in to?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
Thank
not
you.
us, sorry.
Got it.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Jared.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Looking at office supplies, your empirical data over the past couple of years, looks like you're underspending. Should this still be at $4,500 a year?
Yes.
And the reason for that, because the last years you haven't spent that much?
We typically, our office supplies range every, historically, they kind of go up, they ebb and flow. And we find ourselves about $2,500 to $3,000, just depends on what we need in our building. We just did a big order on some of our trespass warnings, our other warnings, dog summonses, stuff like that. Some of that stuff comes out of there as well. Pens, sticky notes, we love it, GPD. But that's typically where we bring all of our office stuff there.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else, page 16? Then go to page 17. Jared.
I know you mentioned this, Chief, and I just got to ask, electricity, it looks like you haven't come close at all, but we're increasing it by $5,000 over default, and the default we haven't hit any time in the past couple of years.
Yeah. So, again, that's what we're estimating based on the rates that just went up. We've had a lot of, you'll see in the winter as that goes in, some of our heat is electricity, some of it's propane. It's just one of those things that, based on the rates, we brought it up.
So we're expecting the same amount just because of the rate increase?
Yeah, that's why we put it up. That's similar to gas as well. Again, it's hard for us to really budget our agency on electricity and or propane and gasoline. We try to go based on our usage and what the price is, but each year it's different.
All set. John?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, follow-on question, please. Thank you. You said electric heat. Is that conductive electric heat that you're talking about as part of that?
Yes, so part of our building is air, forced air that's using propane, but because of the way our building is and our systems that we use, the airflow, some people are really, really cold while the heat's on, and some people are really, really hot. Just depends on where you are in the building and the way our system and how antiquated it is. So some of the electric heat is people have space heaters in their offices or their common areas to try to keep them a little bit warmer while they work. So that's kind of where that'll
Yeah,
let you
those are
go.
very, there been any consideration for like splits or heat pumps, that kind of thing, to replace that? Or
Great question.
Those
I've
those are a
actually
lot
just-
more efficient and economical.
I was just talking about that this week because I think we could, I don't know what the expense would be, but I think we could kind of look into that for each individual office. I don't know what the expense would be, but they are probably more efficient.
Mhm.
I know they're more
Yeah.
efficient.
Roughly, my experience is they're about 300% efficient in terms of the amount of electrical energy you put in versus what you get out of
Yeah.
it. So that's a 200% more you could get.
It definitely would be something that we could look into and then see if we have the CFP.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Brian?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. 2 questions. What constitutes contingency expenses?
It's a great question. My predecessors have told me that we've had that line there for anything that comes up, any situation that we have that we don't normally budget for, that we would have to go to the board and ask for permission to spend it for certain things. I have not had to spend that. I can tell you that in the past, we've used it for a homicide that was in a public parking lot where there was blood all over the ground, and we were able to use some of that money to clean the blood up because you have to clean it up a certain way. And also, there was another spot in a public area where someone defecated on some public playground equipment, and that has to be picked up by a biohazard company as well. So we used some of that money in the past, I believe, from there as well.
Okay, thank you. And then a follow-up, but different question, Leads Online, is that a subscription or an app? What's
Yep.
that?
That is another portal that we utilize, and it is a subscription that we use once a year. And really what it is a best tool that we use for pawn shops throughout the New England region.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else, page 17? We're going to move on to page 18.
Mr. Chair, if I could,
right.
if you don't mind, I wanted to help Jared understand. I know I'm going back to office supplies. I wanted to give you a little bit of historical data. Back in 17, we spent about 3,000. 18 was about 5,100. 19 was 4,391. 2020 was 2,500. Let me just go back. 21 was 40, almost 4,500. 22 was 31, and 23. That's kind of where we're averaging.
So we're pretty much under budget for most of it. Don't get me wrong, I love the cars.
Sure. Yeah, I mean,
okay,
we're close.
Thank you.
You're welcome, sir. Thank you.
Okay, anything else for police? Move on to dispatch after that. All right, great. We're going to move on to police comms. So that's bottom of page 18, page 19. I'll give the committee a minute. Chief, can you answer for me that $1,000 for uniforms? What are we buying more of? Because I see that the line's a little low on page 19. What else? How many employees is this covering, and what else are we purchasing?
So it covers all of our dispatch staff.
How many is that?
If you include the 2 supervisors, I believe it's 11.
11. Okay.
Michelle typically does not wear a uniform. As a supervisor, she typically just wears civilian clothes. But they typically get short sleeve polos, long sleeve polos. We do buy them a pair of pants or 2. And then sometimes we get them hats depending on what they want. They have some, again, you're in a room for 12 hours with a partner. Some people are cold all the time, some people are hot all the time. So sometimes we buy them kind of pullover jackets. The increase what you're seeing there is really the price of what we're buying is just going up. The shirts are going up. So that's kind of what the $1,000 is there.
So if we're not spending the full line, like, are you? I mean, as of this month, we've only spent $714. So is that something where you heavy loaded at the end of the year, but even then, it's still $1,000 down?
Typically, we typically try to get some spring stuff and then winter stuff. This year, we've been very lucky in dispatch to keep everybody, so everybody mainly has all their uniforms. We did just hire one more dispatcher, and I still have one more opening. So if we can fill that new spot, that'll be, a little bit of an increase.
Okay. Any other questions? Page 19, page 18. Jared.
Are we in comms now, or are we still in
We're in
operations?
communications, 18, 19. Yeah.
Thank you. So going back to regular full-time wages for comms, the increase, is that because we have at least one person that is not union?
We have 2 members in dispatch that are
Not union?
Yes.
Thank you.
Just give the committee a minute. Finish up. Allison.
Thank you. What is the spots contract?
That is our state police online terminal. Essentially, that is the contract for us that we pay state police that gives us our connection to all of the federal databases and our state database. So you get stopped by the police and we put in your plate in the computer, that comes back to whose registered car it is, who the registered owner is, license information, FBI databases, stuff like that.
Okay, great, thanks.
You're welcome.
Chief, what line does Libby come out of?
Currently, she comes out of employee development, out of operations.
Okay, so I think did we receive grant funding for a while? Or no, it's fully department funded?
Yes.
Okay.
And if I may.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, she comes out of crime prevention, not employee development, sorry, crime prevention. And Officer Juris is actually currently working on putting together a nonprofit organization with some board members to be able to maybe start to fund that through that nonprofit.
Any other? Go ahead, Brian.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Chief, you probably mentioned already, I might have missed it, the equipment and maintenance line item. There's an increase there?
Yeah, that's the one where we have that 5-year maintenance agreement with our vendor. That's where that extra, I believe it's 40, I don't know the exact number, I believe it's like $45,000 and some change. That's the actual contract.
Okay.
We kept $3,000 in there for any type of other equipment that is failing that we need to fix in dispatch. It's not included in that package.
Got it, okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Jared?
Chief, just adding on to that. So we're going to be looking at that expense being part of the regular default budget going forward for the next 5 years? Because has this contract already been signed and should be part of the default this year, or we're signing the contract next year? And that's why it's new.
So the contract has been signed, but because it has not gone to the voters of the town, it will only be part of the default budget, the same amount. If any increases will not. It's got a municipal non-appropriation clause included in it.
Okay. So if the voters don't...
If the voters did not approve the budget, then we would, the select board would be forced with moving funds around to pay that or pulling the non-appropriation clause.
So if this proposed budget passes as it is, the $45,000 will be part of the default budget for the next 4 years?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Could we go back to page 18 briefly? I'm sorry. Under your operating budget of equipment, you stated that your equipment line is decreasing for operations by $6,500. While true compared to your 23 budget, it went up from your actuals of 22 from 9,000 to 33,000.
Yep.
Was that the camera
Yes.
taser
Yep,
thing?
that's exactly what it was. So that is our tasers and body cameras, and what you're seeing in that operational line that's gone up, it's gone down because we bought everything up front this year, but it's gone down slightly because we do have that 5-year contract with them as well. So our tasers are roughly about $25,000 a year. That's why that line has went down because we already bought the body cameras, half with the grant and half with the funding this year. So it went down because now we're just funding just the tasers for the next 5 years out of that line.
Okay, I'm sorry, can I ask a little clarification? So you're funding a maintenance program to keep those up for the next 5 years, or this is part of that initial
Nope, this was,
purchase?
the initial purchase, because
Okay.
this was the one, remember I explained last year,
Yeah.
that instead of putting in CIP, we kept it operational because they split it out for us over 5 years, so we didn't spend the $158,000 all at once, because we wanted to keep it in the budget to be able to keep refreshing them every few years. So that's why the initial purchase price was about $158,000. So we chose last year to put it in the operation line rather than CIP to keep it operational so we can keep changing them out when we need to.
Okay, and that's why it's in the default, because it's already part of that initial purchase. We're not
Yes.
giving the tasers back.
Yes, hopefully not.
Or the body cams.
Hopefully not.
Thanks.
Okay, any other questions for Chief Serino? All right, thank you, Chief.
Great, thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Does the committee, it's my intention to finish the 2 other departments on the agenda. Do we need to take a 3-4 minute break or power right through? Power. All right, we're gonna power through. Rick? Come on up.
Soon, Rick, 6.
Thank you.
How we doing?
Great, how are you?
Good.
Doing so good it hurts. What I'd like to do, if you don't mind, is kind of go through and explain what our department is, what Parks and Recreation is. I mean, Parks and Recreation in this community is basically a program offering, it's a facility offering, and it has a lot of different community ties within our system. So if we go through this little presentation I gave you, I'd like to start out with, we have four complexes, sports complexes. The sports complex, which is 2 full-size soccer fields. We have 3 fields over at the Surratt complex, and we have Barnard Park, and we have Louis Street. How many of you folks have children, grandchildren, nieces, nephews that partake in activities in our community? Have you been around and seen these different facilities? Excellent, okay. So as you know, Surratt Field is in the fall is a huge area for practices for our United Travel Soccer folks, the Goffstown Junior Grizzlies folks. The sports complex is a game complex for those same entities. And then in the springtime, the lacrosse is using the sports complex for games, using the Surratt fields for practices. Barnard Park is used, the football field is used heavily by our high school. So the high school uses Barnard football field in the fall for football practice. Very heavily used for that. In the spring, the park is used for track and field. The tennis courts are used for the tennis program. So there's a lot of collaboration and interaction of different entities and different groups that are using these facilities. The Louis Street baseball field is used, the Goffstown baseball has to use that. They're growing in numbers. So just to give you an idea, these are different complexes that we're physically managing. You have 2 parks. We have 2 parks in our community, as you know. We have Roy Park and we have Barnard Park. They used to be pretty much very duplication of service type of parks. And the commissioners, the Parks and Rec commissioners, probably about maybe 8-9 years ago, said we need to kind of change the offering of what these parks are. Make them destination parks, you know? So Roy Park now has a really elaborate, nice playground. And it has a nice recreational field for whatever you want to do with that.
Barnard Park has the track, has the tennis courts, has the pool, has a playground, and Roy has a pool too. So they're trying to look at these facilities, and we have to be honest. Everything in our recreational area is pretty darn old. These two parks were established 40 years ago, and we've maintained and we've done some things. You know, we've fixed things here and there on the cheap, and we did what we could. But you just have to keep that in mind too. They're old. The pavilions, the two pavilions, we've been putting lipstick on those things for the last probably 5 years, and they're still running. They're looking good, but a little rough around the edges. The tennis court. Our tennis court right now, we're in a situation where we got a crack, 2 cracks now, that are going the full length of the court. So what we do is we've just kind of like you do the road, every year you fill them, and then that way it keeps it safe. But eventually, down the road, you're going to have to rip those up and replace that. So there's a lot of things happening in the park. The recreation building, I mean, I've been told there was originally something called the Blue Goose. Richard, you may know that. I don't know. But, so that was like in the 70s, 1970s. And what does that building consist of? It consists of a 30 by 30 tiled floor room, and then an office and a conference room in the back. We use it pretty heavily. I love this picture right here. You got the Bone Builders. We got to get them a new building because there's so many of them. They're growing. And then the little picture up top there, that's a yoga class, but my little running joke is when the Bone Builders get exhausted, they go take a nap in the back room. But anyway, the building itself, that's old too, very old. Flip the page. What else do we have? We have Glen Lake Waterfront. Last time the waterfront was rehabbed was 20-something years ago. As we know now, if you go there, it's got a lot of washout, it's got a lot of work that's going to be needed. We do have that in CIP in the out years to renovate and fix. You got the town common. The town common is like a melting pot between DPW, Parks and Recreation, Main Street, Goffstown. Everybody throws in a hand financially and service-wise and makes it work. But that's another area that's getting kind of a little old and tattered. And then, of course, the rail trail. Thank God, I tell you, the rail trail, I'm going to just say it publicly. David Pierce is the best dang guy going. I'm telling you right now. That man is a hero. The amount of work that guy does. You ever see him driving around with his truck and trailer? Mm-hmm. He looks, it's beautiful when he's got that thing full of stuff. He doesn't stop. He's the Energized Bunny. Great guy. The other piece that we need to take into account and understand, our department, we are the athletic field prep for all of the schools, for Goffstown High School, for the middle school. So what does that mean? We have to get all the baseball fields ready, game ready, all the softball fields game ready. Thank goodness, bonus, we got the turf field. That eases up a little bit of the pressure right there, but you still have other grass fields, rectangular fields, JV fields, things like that that have to be taken care of. All the school property, we mow it, we trim it, we do not weed it. And boy, do they need weeding, I'll tell you. Hopefully someday you guys can put in a position to help weed. Anyhow.
Budget committee volunteer day.
Excuse me? Yes.
Budget committee volunteer
No, that, he was looking to the school to do that.
But anyhow.
Field trip.
You know, so the Lions Field Complex, Lions Upper Field, we mow all that. We take care of all that. I mean, we also will mow during the baseball season, Allard Park. JVs use that field, so we mow that field during that time, only during the baseball time. So we're doing all that. So that's kind of like the facility structure, that's kind of what we do there. Then you get into programming, okay? Programming, right now we're going into our basketball season. I am absolutely amazed. Post-COVID, the amount of activity in your parks, in your programming, it's just growing like crazy. And the activity level, it's amazing to me. We're looking at between grades 1 through high school basketball. We got almost 490 kids playing that sport. We got 100 kids in first and second grade basketball alone. So the numbers are just growing in that. Anyhow, you can see all the stuff we in our men's basketball program is busting at the seams. Someday we need to build a community center and add another gym, or if you guys build a school, build a field house so that we can make some gym space. Anyhow, we collaborate a lot too with other organizations. We do a lot with that with programming. Staffing wise, we're in our second year of having a full-time second grounds person, and it's helped us immensely. So we technically, what we do is we have myself as the director, we have a program supervisor, we have a grounds supervisor, and then what we made is that position, the other full-time is a grounds assistant program assistant. And that is working out great because that helps during the winter time. Those activities for grounds, et cetera, kind of slow down a little bit. So we dovetail them right into with the basketball program. We're basically going 7 days a week, starting December till March, running activities. So bringing that person in actually eases up, and we get a little rotation going between us. Contract services, I hear you asking that question when you get into the budget. Contract services for us is basically all our referees, our scorekeepers, things like that. So for all those programs there. And then, of course, we have our summer playground. We're very heavy in the summer months with staffing. So we have about 12 lifeguards. We have 10 summer counselors, and then we also have 2 summer grounds kids as well. So summer staffing for us is very heavy, and you'll see that in the budget. That's a big number for us. Very good. Flip that page. Then this is just the budget. We'll skip over that because you'll ask questions in a few minutes there. So if you go to what I'd like to do is I created this 2024 budget highlight. It's kind of taking some of the line items out of our budget. I'd like to just kind of hit those because those are the ones I think that are going to jump out at you, and I'll try and answer those, and then we can get into the budget. Does that make sense? You good?
Yep.
All right. So for us, with our full-time wages, as you can see, that'll jump up about $11,000 right there. The part-time wage, this is probably the number that's going to kill us. That's the number that pushes us up the most. There's no new positions there. What that is that staying with the competitive market with what a Manchester lifeguard is making, a Bedford lifeguard is making, the people in our area, a summer counselor, a grounds kid, staying in that market level. And that's what that's all that is just maintaining those salaries to be even. Longevity for us, it's basically a personnel plan thing. There's a little increase there. Employee development, that's a different change. What we did this year, we found our old way of doing business for getting lifeguards is we had in our budget, we would pay for 2 lifeguards. That was about $350 per lifeguard. And we would send them to a third party. We found that to really not work. It was a pain in the neck. So what we did is our program supervisor, Aaron, got certified through this licensed program. Town of Keene was using it, a couple other towns were using this lifeguard certification program. She became certified, so then that way there we can certify our own people and it was a $225, $250 expense for that. So you cut the number down a little bit, but the efficiency of it and having more control over it and saying, hey, Brian, how you doing? You know how to swim? Excellent. You want to be a lifeguard? Great, we'll train you. You know what I mean? So, I mean, it helped you network a little better. So what we're proposing is that increase there for four lifeguards. And then a little bit extra money for first aid training and all that. Heating oil, I mean, that's just going the same amount of gallons used. It's just the cost per gallon is changed. It's $3.49. We just got 400 gallons of oil yesterday. It's like $1,300. So, but anyhow, electricity. Electricity it was messed up last year. I think I screwed up and I didn't put the correct number in. I put it in the budgeting, but I think I missed it, and I used this $10,000 figure. We increased it for 2023, but it never showed. So that the 13,000, and if you look at the tracking number that we're at right now, we're around 12,000, 13,000 for next year for electricity. And that was due to last year when they had the 40% increase, something like that. It was a pretty darn big increase last year. Propane, small increase. Again, there's no added gallons there. Gasoline is I think it's a price per gallon change, and I did add 600 gallons to our total usage. So I added a little increase there. Same thing with diesel fuel. It's the combination between the price per gallon, and I added just a little bit. Fleet maintenance, it's all basically, I increased it based on product cost, that kind of thing. Equipment maintenance supplies, last year we had $18,000. Last year, that was the purchase of a new commercial mower. So you take that out, and that's why you see the decrease, but we still have for 2024 a new trailer and a trimmer. Park operation line, that one went up, sadly to say, portable toilets. We were using the state bid contract, and the service was absolutely horrendous. So we ended up going with this company called Drop One. I don't know if high school uses them. Excellent service. It costs a little, $170 a month, but they're worth it. Programmatically, no real new programs per se, just product cost increase, that type of thing. So you're looking at a 6% increase for us. And then CIP, I'll jump right into CIP, okay? So then CIP, CIP, what we're doing is, as you all know, we have the pool project. When you look at the timeline of how the grant runs, you look at the timeline of how our budget processing goes, and working with Danielle over there, Danielle, I always say Danielle, I'm sorry, and Derek, what we thought is the best way to handle this is you have to have drawings done. So it's like a percentage of the cost of the project. So it's roughly $350,000 to have a build design done to get your information. So what the proposal is going to be is to put that forth for CIP for 2024.
Rick, is it your intention of putting that on the warrant as its own warrant?
That is really a question that is going to be answered by the Board of Selectmen. I would assume that's probably where it's going to go.
If we're doing 350 this year,
excuse me?
If we're doing 350 this year, it's going to be like over $1 million next year, right?
2025.
2025. So
you're talking 2024 350 for probably a warrant, an article, and then 2025.
Okay, Kelly, has there been any discussion on if that is going to be, the 350 is going to be its own warrant?
We haven't pulled warrant articles yet, but the assumption is yes, that would be something.
Okay. Sam?
Thank you. I have a question on, so we've certified, you said Aaron?
Yes.
To teach CPR. Do we tell other towns to come to us to learn
No.
CPR?
No.
Because then we could charge them to teach their lifeguards?
No. No, we don't do that.
Could we?
It's a double-edged question. So what you're going to do is intensify the work for this person to do that job. What's the benefit? We get some money out of it? Okay. I'd rather get human bodies out of it and get people that are going to work, and that's more productive in my mind than offering up a class. We could do it, absolutely, but I don't see the benefit of it. You're adding more work on somebody's
Okay.
plate.
Okay.
That's all.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Do we do any contracts for spraying our fields at all?
Contract.
Do we spray our fields for any kind of, with chemicals, for either seeding or pesticides or anything along those lines?
We, in our budget, on our fields that we manage and operate, what you all do is what you do. Yes, there's, we do 4 applications of fertilizer per year. We do a grub control, we do a weed broadleaf control. Yes.
Do we do that, or
That's
we contract it out?
What we do is we fertilize our own, we as the town do all our own fertilizer. The only thing that we'll contract out is the chemical, the weed, and the grub.
Just to follow up on that, is that service, do we know if that's going to increase? Because I heard that a contractor is like a one-person job, or one person does it, but they're no longer doing it, so.
It would increase. I would plan on it increasing.
Okay.
I would.
But it's not in the budget to increase it right now.
Excuse me?
It's not in the budget to increase it
In
right
this
now.
budget, it's a double-edged sword, because there's an increase in my budget for that, but because ours is much a smaller quantity, it's absorbed in that $1,400 increase. In your world, it's going to be a much bigger increase, because it's more hands-on, because that person's doing it.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Thank you. I have 2 quick questions, if I may. Where do you show your revenue lines for any of the fees collected for any of the programs for youth and summer camp and stuff like that? Like, where does that figure come in?
That is a good question. That is, in 2010, the select board at that time created a Parks and Recreation revolving fund. That is actually an ongoing balance sheet that is maintained by our town. What's Zach's title? Accountant. I'm sorry. Which is actually maintained by our town accountant, and then I monitor it, and as commissioners monitor it. So it's not in any of these budget presentations.
So where does that money go?
That money is.
It's not used as offsetting revenue for?
Those monies, a lot of those monies are going towards a lot of the projects. So we built the sports complex. So $280,000 of those monies went to that project. We had to get some pool liners in 2012, 2011. Those monies were in there. Different projects. We had to replace a roof on the Parks and Recreation building at $20,000. That money was in there. When the select board at that time, that's how they designed it. They designed it for that kind of a service.
Okay, my second, thank you. And I know this was just a concept plan, but when we toured, you had shown us the Barnard Park, the pool concept plan for Weston and Sampson. I understand those are probably not your soup to nuts plans that you're talking about for $350,000. Do you recall how much even that little concept was that you already put money into?
The concept for the whole pool?
Yeah.
Was like $4 million.
No, I'm sorry. Money has already been spent to get a concept plan out. And now
we spent $5,000 to get this right here.
All right. And now you're $350,000.
$5,000, that's what it gets you.
Right.
So, but anyhow, so now the next part of it is to do the actual engineering drawings of the facilities, both outbuildings and then the pool itself. And that's roughly what they say right there is what?
Well, it said
338,000.
Right, for the total of 4.1 million, but that will give you a more
Yes.
up-to-date
Yes.
figure.
Yes, yes, yes. So when you do that, it'll give you probably more of an accurate bottom line number.
Great, thank you. Laura?
Thank you. When is the last time full-time staff got a raise, and what percent was it?
Last year, we got a raise, the percent, I don't really recall, maybe 3, something like that.
Okay. And for, if I can continue with that, for part-time wages, how many staff does this 120?
24.
24-ish? And did you fill all 24 positions last year?
Last year, no, we did not.
How many did you?
We filled, out of the lifeguard crew, I think we were down 2. We were down 3. We were down 3 in lifeguards. And then the program staff was full, and then the 2 grounds were, so we were down 2 people. 3 people, excuse me.
Down 3. So last year you had a staff of 21, part-time?
Yeah, yes.
All set.
For now.
Okay. Any other questions? Rick, has there been any discussion, I don't know how to say this, about being maybe a little more transparent about the dollar amount of the Barnard Park project and putting the entire project on the warrant and then encumbering the funds? So, because if the voters or the town's gonna approve 350,000, and then next year you come back with 3.8 million, would be roughly what you'd come back with next year. We would have the plans and everything drawn up and spent the 350, and then we'd come back, what if the 3.8 fails, the 350 passes, we just spent 350 that we didn't need to spend. So I guess I'm wondering, has there been discussion about putting the entire project on the warrant and then encumbering the funds to see if the town is even interested or wants to spend the money on this project?
It's a really good question. I mean, the language and wording of said article has not even really come about, but you're making some very interesting points that I think strategically you probably do have to look at. You're right, but
I just look back. I look back at the library project that
If I might.
we spent money on the project and then we didn't approve the project. So, go ahead.
So part of the things that we've discussed in regard to the pool is that it would have to be a bond, and so to do the plans would give us a better cost estimate for which we could bond. Because if we bond, if it were to pass and we bonded an incorrect amount, that creates a multitude of more difficult layers that we would have to work through. And if those parts fail, then we've essentially kind of hurt the whole program. So I think this is the way to get to a transparent proposal, to get a better cost estimate, time frame, what the space will look like, because we certainly can't, in my opinion, in goodwill to the voters, give them that $5,000 picture and say, we think it will be about this much, you know? So we have discussed that in bonds last year in pertaining to the pool. We've had some of that already.
Okay.
Good question.
I guess, is the select board going to, I guess, in the wording of the warrant, say something like, study the process in which to expand or renovate Barnard Park, so the voters understand that this isn't going to be a 350,000 one and done kind of deal like we're looking at?
I mean, I think the language would clarify what we would get out of that. However, I'm not sure at what process that the commissioners are with in finding a company. I know that I believe you had, yeah.
It's all, it's
So
all an
that's part of it as
RFP
well.
bid
What their
process,
RFP
so.
would say that they would get out of that, and obviously that would be included in Cambridge.
Okay.
Do you have any idea that you might come up with grant money for him?
Yeah, we've earmarked and looked at, that's one of the reasons why we stopped what we were doing for 2024, is because if you look at the grant process, it's almost like, what, 16 months, the process. So it's like, so you have, it made more sense. And you can get up to $500,000 from the grant.
And a lot of times if you get grants involved and things like that, then you gotta follow their rules.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of times, they want you to get a grant to design it, and then after you design it, it's gonna cost you more money down the road because of the design work and the way the state wants it, or government.
I mean, both of the two parks, Roy Park, Barnard Park, the Land Water Fund Conservation grants, that's how those parks were built. Those are all federal. It's the same, you'd be going after and trying to seek that same grant, so.
Jared?
This might be for Kelly and the select board, but has there been any thought on using any of the revenue funds for this RFP process versus having it as an expenditure in a warrant? Or what's kind of the thought about that?
So that's, are you talking about the revolving fund?
Yes.
So that is, the commissioners, I believe, wouldn't have enough for that, correct?
How much
What's
is
the current, I can only recall, you have like 81,000 in impact
There's
fees
a
right now.
couple different schools of thought, I guess. If you want transparency, let's talk transparency. You could use those revolving fund monies up to $300,000, and you could do that. You could ask the town folks for the $350,000 and approach it that way. In 2025, when you come to ask for $3.7 million, if you use those revolving fund monies, you're going to have no matching income whatsoever. So where do you put your matching income? I'll leave that up to you.
Go ahead, Kelly.
Thank you. So, I mean, I think it's up to the commissioners if they want to use partial, but I think another reason for putting the design on the ballot as a separate warrant is to give the taxpayers a voice of if they even want to move forward with the pool project as a whole. So I certainly wouldn't want to remove that completely, but yeah, it would be up to the commissioners if they wanted to do that. So, yeah, and I'll leave it.
No, I agree with that strategy,
It's been a
Kelly.
lot of
Absolutely,
conversation.
and I agree with what Kelly said about the RFP process. What the RFP process is getting you is, we have an ideation of 50% cost right now. Going through the RFP, we're going to be able to get to a 95% cost of what the actual construction renovation project would be. So I'm wholeheartedly in agreement with this process.
Lauren?
Thank you. Last year, the previous cycle, when I had been a CIP rep, one of the things that we had talked about was the pool, and it was, the feedback given at that point was, has Parks and Rec done any kind of public polling to see, we got 2 pools in a smallish town, we had technically 3 pools for YMCA, we're including the YMCA for the resident use. Is this sort of was any of that public outreach done? Or is this initial article probably going to be your barometer for testing public interest in the 2 pools?
We've done some public outreach when we did the playground, and quite honestly, that wasn't all that, there's no good measure. There was not enough involvement. So we tried that road. And I think this road here, I think going and approaching it the way we're approaching it is going to tell you yes or no.
This is your public interest.
Right. I mean, I think we do those exercises, and I agree with you. I think they're good. It's just, you don't, honestly, I don't think you get a lot of good community feedback from that. I'm not condoning that in any way, just the experience.
I think just also in the vote as well, we're getting to the point where one, if not both of those pools will fail. Maybe tomorrow, maybe, we'll see, right? It's Rick every year coming to us, telling us about what kind of amazing fix he made by some, massive luck that he got the pumps to turn on or the liner to stick.
You gotta use a lot of lipstick.
So, or fix it black, which is used. So I think this barometer is also a justification for if the pools do close and we decide, we don't renovate them or whatever that next phase looks like, if it's not both pools, it does give not only Parks and Recreation but the municipality as a whole to kind of justify that based on if that makes sense. So it is hard to do like a sensing survey of people, because if it's just of the people who use the pool, that's not really, you know what I mean? It's like, yeah, we've talked about that.
I mean, I will be fine in saying this, and I'll probably cut my own throat saying it, but I think we are a community of 18,000 people, and we only need one. We only need one pool. And the two pool, we've gone beyond. And which one do you want to fix? They're both horrible. All right, let's just be honest. Which one has the most square footage? The Barnard Park has the most square footage. Makes the most sense.
Okay. Frank.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Rick, I know in one of the tours we had spoken briefly about potentially making the Roy Park pool into maybe a splash pad or anything. Have you had any more research into that, and in terms of either cost or information you found out?
I haven't dug into that deeper to get costs and all that stuff. There's other thoughts of maybe that becomes pickleball courts. Maybe it opens up an area where you can now look at that destination thing, okay? And pickleball's huge. Pickleball's absolutely huge. Right now you're using the tennis courts. Duplication, you know what I mean? Maybe you make that a dedicated pickleball court area. So there's a lot of ways I think we can look at it. We have, I think, plenty of time to really start looking at that and really start getting some good ideas flowing.
Okay, great. So, do you have a question?
I do.
Okay, go ahead.
I want to go back to wages, though.
Okay.
Does the 3% put full-time people, where does it put them as far as other surrounding like towns?
I guess we'll find out when that study comes back.
Okay.
Because I can't answer that question right now. I mean, we had an organization do that, so I think when we get that study back, then that would probably tell us that answer.
Okay. And I know I haven't been here for long. It seems high 2 years in a row to have 3%, and I'm very curious as to where they're paid now versus where that would take them.
Well, I mean, 3%, like every principal in the district gets 3% every year. So since I've been on the committee, that's typically been a raise that I've seen.
I guess because I'm looking and I'm trying to see the percents for other. And I don't know if we have it spelled out like we do here with the percent raise that everyone's getting.
Well, I think if you take, maybe I'm not understanding what you're trying to do with the exercise, but if you're looking at our full-time line, we added a full-time employee, so that's going to jump that dollar amount higher.
I'm not even looking at the line. I'm just looking where you said it's 3% and step increases.
Yeah.
I didn't even go to the line. Like I was looking through
the
Chiefs thing, and I don't see any percent listed there. So it just got me thinking, yes, I know things cost more. We have fewer staff, we have more staff. But it got me thinking about percent and step. And I'm only seeing that here so far.
Maybe I can help out and ask the question this way. Do you have any union individuals that work for you? So
we can get the local Parks and Rec $7.95.
The reason why I mention this is If you look at the default versus the new spend, the actual increased pool for full-time employees with this group is 2.78%. So it's not 3%.
Okay.
Because the new spend here is $6,598.
Okay.
As you divide that by the default,
Sure.
you're actually less than 3%. So on average, an individual working in this group of full-time is only getting less than 3% raise next year, is what we're budgeting.
Okay.
Just had to make sure I could say it. So I can just, it's not released yet, but I can assure you that they're still below market.
Okay, that's really what I want to know, thank you.
By enough, that it shouldn't be a question.
Okay.
To increase.
Because it looks high, but without knowing that changes everything.
That's all I can say on it, but.
It's fine, thank you.
Brian?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So Director Rick, I was just curious, are we buying gasoline and diesel in bulk?
Yeah, it's the town rate.
Town
We
rate,
buy-
okay.
Yeah, so, I mean, that's kind of run basically through the town.
Okay.
Highway department.
Okay.
Yeah, we all.
I assumed, I just wanted to confirm.
Oh, yeah, we all dovetail on that.
All right, thank you.
Okay, so this budget is, spent a lot of time on it, 3 pages, so start page 34, 33.
Oh, man, we haven't done that.
You haven't even done that. That's what I'm saying.
We did, but.
I feel like we have. Rick, you gave such a
Oh,
great
my
presentation.
God, I thought I was all done.
You're in the
Okay,
hot
I'm
seat
sorry.
once a year, Rick.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
All right, page 33, anything? There's been years I've been on this committee where nobody's asked a single question, so I'm
See,
very happy.
that's
that-
why I did that little like worksheet
Yes.
highlight thing, because I thought that would have been the question, so
Yes.
that's why I did that. I guess not.
Anything on page 33? Okay, I'm gonna let the committee look through page 34, 35. We'll give it a couple minutes or so if there are any questions. Melanie?
On page 34, I think 3 lines up from the bottom, equipment, maintenance, and supplies went from 18,000 budgeted last year to 6,375.
Yep, that was remember I was saying the $18,000 mower that we purchased. So now you take that out, and now it's decreased, and we're getting a trailer and a trimmer.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, anything else for Rick? Thank you very much, Rick.
You're welcome. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thanks, Rick.
All right. Library.
All right, last but not least, we're gonna welcome up the library. See Diane's here.
Yes, thank you.
Kathy, you're coming up as well? The other trustees are in the back as well.
I just want to clarify a comment that the chair made about the library project. All the money spent to date to purchase land and for pre-construction costs were paid by private money. They were not taxpayer money. And I just want to make that clear so that there's no question about that.
The feasibility study, though, was paid out of the warrant article that was on the ballot.
That was still private money.
Okay.
The trustees need permission from the voters to use their own money.
Got it, thank you.
Okay.
All right.
So thanks, everybody. You have my handout right in your binder. We're at tab 7. And we did things a little bit differently this year. We provided a year-to-date look at what the library has been doing as far as services to our community. And we chose August because we wanted the select board and the budget committee to see the same information. So it won't be updated until we complete the year, and then you'll see another handout that looks just like this, but just with annual numbers on it. The statistics that we gather every month are based on what we're required to gather, and those are requirements from the federal government, from the Institute of Museum and Library Services. And so you can see that our numbers for 2023 year-to-date look excellent. And we've received many great compliments on our programming to date, especially our summer experience. We had wonderful numbers for our summer experience program this year. The rest of the notes that I've given you are just highlights of our budget. Our budget for 2024 has increased by $40,078, or a 4.88% increase. If we look at our wage lines, we have not added any staff to our 2024 budget. No additional hours, no additional positions. We employ 6 full-time staff members and 6 part-time staff members. We currently have 1 full-time position that is not filled, so we are on the hunt for another staff person. If any of you are catalogers or know a cataloger, send them my way, because we are desperate. The rest of the personnel costs, longevity, FICA, Medicare retirement, those are all detailed there, and they have the usual increases. Tuition reimbursement, we have zeroed out that line. We don't have a student attending a graduate program once our current student graduates in December. So we've zeroed out that line. We don't carry money in that line unless we have a request from a staff member. Everything else is pretty much level funded until we get to operating supplies, which is in the middle of page 2. We increased that by $500 based on expenses. Our photocopier contract doesn't increase, but I have ordered a new photocopy machine for the library. Our photocopier currently is 11 years old and cannot be repaired any longer, and just to get it to feed the paper is a wiggle of the drawer to get it to feed the paper right now. No changes to the materials line. We did, if you go to the top of the 3rd page, computers and communications, we carry our own money in our computer line. It's not funded by the town, and so the increase that you see here, $6,570, is based on the budget developed by the IT department. There's nothing new there. It's just for our usual replacement of machines. It's for our Office 365 licensing. And as I said, it's all detailed right here. And if you need further details, I have that with me as well. Other changes are pretty minimal. Our heating oil line was decreased because that one that works out based on the formula that the town uses, and also the electric line. Those are contracted through the town. Our telecommunications line was increased minimally by $512. The only other lines that were increased are our program lines. As you know, that is how we fund all the wonderful programs and events that we provide to our community. We increased that by $700. GMILKs, which is line 69100, that is our consortium. We are one of 12 libraries in the GMILKs consortium. We are the smallest member, and our anticipated dues and courier delivery increased by $2,569 for 2024. And then our electronic subscriptions and contracts, you see what that line pays for, and we are anticipating a little over an $1,800 increase for 2024.
All set. Okay, any questions for Diane? also go over the warrant article you're putting in? Please, can you talk a little bit more about that?
Sure. The capital reserve fund that has been proposed by the Library Board of Trustees at the amount of $200,000 is money to pay for matching grant money, because we have no matching money for grants. And that was one thing that the voters requested of the Library Board of Trustees, is that we work on grant funding for library projects and capital expenses. And so that's what that money's for, in addition to funding some of those projects that we're working on. And we have a list of projects. The first and foremost, our building is 114 years old. It's on the National Register of Historic Places. Our first priority is to have the windows restored that are the original, 1909 windows with the little pulley system and all kinds of stuff. So that is our first project that we're working on, and hoping that we'll be able to apply for LCHIP money to help with that project, and that's a 50% match. So that's what that $200,000 is earmarked for.
Is there a reason why the trustees got to that amount?
Say that again?
How'd you get to 200,000?
That's an estimate just based on what our projects look like, and that's what, moving forward, that's how the trustees will decide annually what they'll request, is based on the projects that are on tap.
Kelly?
Can I just add, so I sit on the Library Board of Trustees as their select board representative, and they also did an extensive amount of grant research over the course of this past year. And based on the amounts of grant funds available per applicant, that was also why they chose that amount, just knowing how much they'd had to have in the bank for those matching funds for some of the larger grants that do exist. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, that's fine.
But that's a big part of it.
That's helpful.
So any of these projects, was it your intention or the trustees' intention to put the window restoration or other projects in CIP? Or were you just planning on using the capital reserve fund to replace or continue with those? I guess I'm looking at, like, you're the only department that doesn't have anything in CIP other than the library bond. So seeing how the library bond isn't happening, do you plan on coming back with a 10-year long-term plan on how to replace the infrastructure of the library?
Not necessarily. It will be decided on an annual basis, because nothing is guaranteed. We'll try and apply for LCHIP in 2024 for the window project. That's not a guarantee. So every year the trustees will decide what their priorities are for the following year based upon the progress that we're making.
And I'd just like to say that after the election in the spring, the trustees really heard the voters, and it was pretty resounding on what they said. And what a lot of the comments we heard was, why don't we fix what we have? And that's the part of the reason for asking for this capital reserve fund to be made, and so that we have ready access to money if we come upon a grant that needs matching funds. And I know we do have privately held funds. The way the application of how those funds work is, if we want to use them, if a donation happens in a calendar year, we can use those funds right then. However, once that calendar year is over, we actually have to go to the voters, and the money can't be like earmarked. We can't go to the voters and say, we think we might have a grant next year. Can we use 20,000 next year? It doesn't work. Like, it will just go back into our funds, and we'd have to ask again. So the capital reserve fund would allow us to be more nimble with that, and as well as kind of doing what the voters asked, which was fix the current building as it is.
Okay. Olivia?
I'm sorry if this has already been answered, but so since it's a historical building and you guys are dedicated to maintaining that integrity, for a building that over 30,000 people, I know some are repeat visitors, but that over 30,000 bodies move in and out of, are you limited by who you can work with? Is that part of the grant research, or is it just trying to find the most cost-effective solutions?
Windows. The windows has to be an actual, they have to have like certifications that they're actually follow the historic limitations. And so there's actually not a ton in the state.
Right. And that's actually one of the challenges we're facing right now, is that when we look at restoration of historic windows, there's 3 guys, 3 companies, and when 2 of them never return their calls, you know, it's a really challenging process because we do need to maintain the integrity of that building.
Right.
So, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, we're gonna go Jared, then Brian.
Okay.
I'm not sure if you can answer this question, or maybe somebody else. Do you get impact fees at the library for new developments that come in?
We do not. So we did request impact fees, and when the town had their study done this year, we were told that we were premature in requesting impact fees. So that's a no-go right now.
Okay.
And we can request them if we're going to ask for construction money again, in the future. So that's what we were told from the town planner.
Because they can't be used to meet deficiencies, only for growth due to population change.
You're picking up what I'm putting down.
I am, yes. I understand exactly what you're thinking.
Brian.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So for the $200,000 request, have you already reached out to your donor base for private funding for that matching?
No.
The capital reserve fund can't be funded by donor funds either.
Okay.
It has to be public money.
Thank you.
So, seeing how there's a lot of trustees here, was there ever a plan to put part of the trustee funds to deposit into the capital reserve fund to start the fund?
It's
And
not
then
legal to do that.
if you put it on the warrant as trustees shall expend 150,000 per se for the purpose of creating the fund.
You can't do
You
that.
can't do that.
Our finance folks right behind us.
Just wondering.
A capital reserve fund must be funded with public money, not private money.
Okay.
Okay, so, and that's the reason for the request.
Okay.
This might be a question for Kelly. Know that you're having discussions, but with the CRF that we're looking to put in place, what is the funding mechanism going to be used? Has that been decided? Are we looking at unassigned fund balance or rates through taxation?
I mean, everything is presented as to be raised by taxation. Last year, the select board increased based on, by the direction of our, not by the direction, but by the recommendation of our finance director through our auditing process, the amount of money that we have to hold through unassigned fund balance. So we increased the minimum amount that we have to cover school, town, county, things like that. So we're not quite sure at this moment how much money comes from unassigned fund balance. As you know, the increase to apparatus is already happened, so we need to maintain that fund, so that's usually a priority for us, but we don't know if we'll even have funds this year, just based on the amount that we have to hold in that account because it's increased from our past minimum, which was very low. So I don't know, is the short answer to that question.
Any other questions? Frank?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. How many windows are there?
I think 35. Did we count 35 windows?
A lot of them have transoms, so the window companies sometimes consider the bottom pane, top pane, and the transom as 3 separate windows. So it depends on how the window company is defining their scope.
Okay.
But yeah, it's about 35.
Yeah.
Follow-up too. Could you expand a little bit on facility maintenance? For example, 5 times per week cleaning, exterior door repairs. This looks like an ongoing expense of about $2,700 a month.
Yeah.
This is your estimate for the upcoming year.
What's the question, Frank?
Explain facility maintenance. There's a
Yeah.
number of items in there. I was just wondering how they were broken down and.
Well, I can tell you that cleaning comes to about $16,224 a year just for daily cleaning. That doesn't count cleaning of the carpets twice a year, cleaning of the furniture more than twice a year. If you know what upholstered furniture in a children's room looks like after about 3 months. This is also the line that we take emergency repairs. So if we have an emergency repair that's not necessarily budgeted, it comes out of this line also. So it's sort of, it has the annual, you know, furnace cleanings, all the inspections that we have to do because we're a public building. Everything comes out of that line. I can't really quantify what each of those things cost.
Okay, no, that,
Yeah.
with the amount of the cleaning, that puts it in perspective, so, thank you.
Thank you.
Melanie?
Thank you, Chair. I remember from our tour, we had a really engaging conversation about what would be involved in redoing the windows. And if I remember right, it wasn't just the windows that would have to be removed, stored, replaced, but those bookcases in front of it, and probably much more would have to be done to prepare the space for the work to even be done.
Yes, that's very true. So on our second floor, if you remember from the tour, in the south room, which is the room that's closest to the common, we have bookshelves against the wall covering the windows. So in order for us to have the windows restored, that whole wall of shelving has to be removed and then rebuilt afterwards. That's a whole nother challenge to this project.
Just quick follow, are there other things that would have to be done to have those other windows replaced as well?
It's the same restoration process, it's just complicated by the fact that there's shelving there that has to also be removed, and they're built into the wall, against the wall, so they're probably not going to be able to be reused. We'll have to have something else rebuilt around the windows.
Thank you.
How much do you anticipate the window replacement cost?
The first quote that we received is just under $40,000, I believe.
It was a pretty wide range, unfortunately. It was 1,000 to 3,000 per window was the quote, but that unfortunately is only one vendor.
Great. Okay, are we ready to go into the budget? Okay, so I'm looking at only a few pages here, 36 to 38, so I'm going to start on page 36. Jared.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just as you can tell, I'm always, first question, full-time employee wages. I'm looking at, you said an increase of $21,000 roughly for our 6 employees. Do we have any union or collective bargaining agreements? No.
No, the library is a non-union department.
Okay. So your budget this year was $370,000, but your default budget's $380,000? So how did you increase your default budget?
That's a finance department question. We don't develop our own default budget. Can you?
So the default budget for the library is based on where their employees are at currently. So some of the people that were brought in may have been brought in at a higher step than the person who vacated the position from the 2022 budget. You also have, and so they're currently at that rate throughout this operating budget. You have factors like the library is a cycle behind the rest of the non-union in town. So the library trustees skipped a year. They were a year behind, and you've seen that in the last couple of years of presentations. So there's a couple different factors in there, but it does encompass all their positions and making sure that they're at the rate that they're currently at in this cycle.
So are they overspending their current budget cycle by $10,000? Because I would imagine that your default budget must be your budget with any contracted services and agreements. So I don't understand how you can have an increase there.
So I can pull up the detail for you in the meantime. We do it by each individual, each position. So I can take a look at what we have in there. I'm not aware of them overspending their budget.
But we do step programs for people, if they have 15 years, this is what their contracted rates are.
Our step increases are based on performance. We're the only department that provides a step increase if performance is above a specific level. So we budget for everyone to get a step increase every year. That doesn't always hold true, though.
So this isn't directed towards the library. I think I'm having problems understanding why our default is higher than our current budget for non-union groups. I just, maybe if you talk to me one-on-one on that, because this is not making sense to me.
So our budget is predicated on a July 1st increase when we get to...
Which has already been approved by the voters, which was the select board's budget that was on the warrant article and approved. So that should be the default.
There's a half year. So so those employees get their increase on July 1st. We do not increase them for the entire default budget, but they have that increase. We don't reduce people back to where they were the previous January.
Let's take it offline. I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around this. Well, I think it's just me, so that's good. Let's talk individually.
Okay. Thank you, Jared.
Thanks, Danielle.
All right, anything else? Page 36. We're going to go to page 37. Samantha.
Thank you. At the very bottom of page 37, programs, our 2023 budget was $8,500, but year to date we've spent almost $4,000 over. And I realize that we're increasing that for 2024, but do you think that increase is enough?
It was a decision that we made that we would keep that cost as low as we could. This year, we added a couple of initiatives that we had not budgeted for, like our One Goffstown initiative, our National Neighbor Day initiative. So those are basically what put us over, in addition to increased cost for performers, scholars, guests, things like that. So, you know, those are hard to control and hard to estimate for the following year. But because our increase was already at 4.88%, we're trying to keep our costs down on that line.
Thank you.
Thanks, Samantha.
Other questions? Okay, I'm going to make a motion to increase line 53460 facility maintenance by $50,000 for the purposes of replacing the windows in the library.
I'll second that.
Objection. Chair cannot make motions.
Is there anybody else that would like to make that motion?
I'll make that motion.
So the motion to increase line, there was a motion by Frank.
What line was that?
To increase line 53460 facility maintenance by $50,000. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second it. Yeah.
Okay, Richard, second by Richard.
It's at 32,908 right now.
Yep, so 32,908, it would go to 52,908, or sorry, 82,908. All right, so I'm gonna let Frank, you wanna start? Or do you wanna speak to your motion first?
Sure. I think this makes sense, seeing as how there's going to be the windows need to be done. They're historical component of the library, and we've got to take a look at this somewhere.
Okay, other discussion? Lauren?
Thank you. By doing it this way, though, do we not tie their hands on finding grant money? They don't even seem to have a figure in for a final estimate. That seemed to be an over-the-phone call of how much would this cost, and not see my
No,
building?
I
Was it
have an
the
estimate.
$1,000 to $3,000 window?
That was an on-the-phone estimate.
that one.
But I do have a written estimate from one restorer.
For how
And we
much?
need more than one before we select.
Before it gets,
Yeah, exactly.
sent
There
out.
is- there
So
is
thank,
several.
so I have the floor. Thank you.
Go ahead, Lauren.
I appreciate that, thank you. So thank you for the clarification. Is it my understanding then if we add this item in, that we have taken away the ability to look for grants? Because it's gonna be money that's just put in, it's not gonna be a CRF fund.
Correct. It wouldn't come from the CRF fund if the money was in the budget.
I think this is jumping the gun.
Yep, I'm gonna let Kelly go.
Thank you.
But that wouldn't necessarily tie their hands for using for finding grants specific to the window. Is that what you're referring to, Lauren?
Right, because I thought that you had to have public funds set aside.
Right, so in this instance, if the budget was approved, they would have those funds, and then the grant would go in as offsetting revenue.
Gotcha, thank you.
But we wouldn't be required to apply for a grant if we had the money in hand.
No, you wouldn't, but we know that LCHIP money exists,
The
so.
hope is that you would.
I'm just pointing that out, that there's no requirement for that to happen if we have the money in our budget.
Go ahead,
I
Lauren.
think my question is a follow-up. So would this mean that there would be no warrant? Is that, they can still do the warrant for the capital?
They can still propose the warrant.
Okay, because for other projects or moving forward?
The windows was probably our biggest project, but we actually have a list of several items.
Doug.
Double pane glass, triple pane glass.
One second, Richard. I'm
Yeah.
gonna let Doug go.
If this got approved, what guarantees would there be that this actually goes towards windows if this motion were approved? Is there any guarantees?
We have a pretty good track record of following the requirements that have been given to us, and so we would definitely use that money as it was budgeted.
Richard, are you all set?
No,
Okay.
so you say you got the figure on how would it cost to do the windows? What are they gonna build for a window? Are they gonna have a double pane glass window or
I don't
triple
have,
pane glass window?
I don't have that in front of me. I don't have the estimate with me. And like I said, it was just one estimate, and we need a couple more before we can even move forward with this project.
Okay. Laura?
So say in this year, hopefully this wouldn't be the case, but say in this year, because getting quotes have been, and it doesn't happen as soon as they'd like, this money can just carry forward in that line to continue for that?
They can encumber funds if there's a project like already earmarked.
It can only be encumbered if there's a contract with a vendor or a contractor.
So it would have to be at least at that point.
Mhm.
By the end of next year, you would need a contract.
Yeah, exactly.
Kelly? All set?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. I mean, my hope is that if we fund and put money in the budget to help upkeep the library, which I'm totally in support of, the library will come back and be more transparent about the projects that need to happen. And if you need more money, just ask and put it in CIP.
That's
Yes.
where the CRF started. It started in CIP, and we were requested to make it a CRF. So we did go through that process.
Who
And-
requested that? Was that select board or?
That was, Derek actually assisted the Library Board of Trustees with that.
Okay.
I have a problem with you using the word transparent, because I believe that we have been transparent, and if you want a list of projects at this very moment, we have them right here with us, and we can tell you which projects are slated moving forward for our building. One is that our building is brick. It needs to be repointed, which should be done every 25 to 30 years, and to my knowledge has never been done. We have pocket doors on the second floor that don't work, that really should be restored. And there's one of them that doesn't even have glass in it. We have beautiful marble flooring that you have all seen during your tours. Those floors need to be repaired and restored. The memorial wall that is marble with gold leaf, that needs restoration. So we have projects that we've been quite verbal about in trustee meetings, and that's what we're looking to move forward.
Okay.
Joe, if I could, because I know what you're saying, so I'm just trying to help here. I think what Joe means about that is putting it in CIP in a way to plan for, because we know some of those cost more money, but just for context for the library board, they did that work to figure out what those projects were, and that was part of the planning process and costing out with the renovation and expansion of the library. So once they heard the voters and said, we want you to deal with that portion, they pulled those things out, and once they realized how much grant money was available to do those projects, we ran into the not being able to use funds. It's a whole series of things, so I think you're both kind of saying the same thing, those things exist, and we could potentially plan them out, but also getting the grant funding is a priority, not only for the town as a whole, utilizing that process, and also the specialization of the types of work they need done is a really, very complex thing, even in the grant world. So you're both saying the same thing, but just not connecting in the same way, if that makes sense. So
that's okay. Yeah. Richard, go ahead.
In listening to your list, I would think that the windows would be a priority because of the savings in heating.
And that's what we've said, that's our first project on our list, is to have those windows restored.
Brian?
Yeah, I have a question on the motion. Is the facility maintenance the appropriate place for this increase of $50,000? I mean, is it when
Danielle,
replacement?
is that the right line for that?
It's a one-time expense, so I'm not.
It could go in that line.
It could.
It's a restriction on the detail line by category on DRA 4. We could put it in a facility improvement line under CIP, but it would act the same in the budget either
Okay.
way.
Thank you.
Okay. Frank?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Diane, you said the estimate that you received was $40,000. That was the only one you received?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so far. We're nagging a lot of people right now with no result.
there is also a process just based on the limited amount of vendors who do that work to still go with that quote if they're not physically able to get anyone else to respond to them. There's a process that they go through with the select board to get approval to work around, not work around, but to, in this case, due to lack of availability, get an approval to not go through our minimum of 3 vendor quotes for that process. So it's not something we typically do, but if you can't get anyone, we're dealing with that with DPW and the sprinkler system right now as well. So, we can still make that doable.
Jared?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Regardless, if this passes, I hope this doesn't preclude you from going forward with the CRF. I know the maintenance items that you have. I've seen the list that you've had over the years. Even with a $50,000 in flush, you're not going to hit the maintenance items that you know you need to repair. So I know that you're going to, if this passes, you're going to use this for what it's needed for, not just for Windows.
Yes.
So I'm glad that it's there and we're talking about this.
Thank you.
Okay, so there's a motion by Frank, second by Sam. Are we ready to vote? Everybody all set? Okay, all those in favor, raise your hand. Okay, so per Budget Committee rules, I have Sam Kearns, Kelly Boyer, Joe Alexander, Frank Hobbs, Laura Stevens, Olivia Welch-Erdahl, Richard Fletcher, Melanie Redford-Hebert, and Allison DeCesare saying aye. And those opposed? I have Richard Manzo, Lauren Dukas, Brian Mazer, and Doug Pounds opposed. Any abstentions? Jared Talbot abstains. Okay, so motion passes. So line is now at $82,908.
Thank you.
Yep. Is there anything else on this page? My hope is that you would also go to LCHIP and use that money and let me know in my other capacity as your town representative. Let me know how I can help getting state funds for that. Okay?
Great, thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Anything else on page 37? Go to page 38. Anything else? Perfect, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so that concludes our new business, so we're going to move on to old business. I don't have anything for old business. Does anybody have anything for old business? No. Perfect, so we are, I love that, we're right on 9 o'clock. So our upcoming meeting, as a reminder, we do not have a meeting next week for Thanksgiving. And then Tuesday, the 28th, I canceled, it's my birthday, I'm sorry, can we do the 30th? It's scheduled for the 30th. And we'll go from there. So at that meeting, we're gonna have Sewer Department, Public Works, Fire Department. And then the Tuesday after that, we're doing Goffstown Village Water Precinct, Grassmere Water Precinct, school budget, town budget, hopefully wrap the budget up by December 5th. Sound good?
Did we need to have public comment?
There's a public hearing for all budget items, so.
We don't have like public comment today, or?
We don't have to because we're technically deliberating and hearing from town departments. Public comment is for the public hearing that's gonna happen in January regarding the town budget. We're gonna have our own public hearing as a budget committee.
Okay.
That's all. Okay, anything else? Perfect, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll motion to close.
Motion to adjourn by Sam, second by Brian. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we're unanimous. Thank you.